kitchen. So many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen with ideas we're happy to share.
Welcome to the May Show of So Many Cooks in the Kitchen. My name is Dilip Barman in Durham, North Carolina. So Many Cooks are about 24 Food for Life instructors. Food for Life is a nutrition education program of the Physicians Committee. It's a program designed to keep us healthy through whole food plant-based eating. We share in our classes how to cook wonderful plant-based foods that are easy, healthy, nutritious, and keep us healthy. And if we end up with certain conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, or cancer, we have classes specifically for those cases as well. So what we decided to do as the pandemic was closing in on us is, in addition to our Food for Life classes, we decided to try doing something online. And so for those of you who've been watching us, this is almost exactly our second year. So happy anniversary to us, and thank you for watching us. If you're new, I hope you'll become a new regular and watch our shows. We're here every month, and every other month we have the kids in the kitchen. So today the topic is so many sauces. One thing sometimes which differentiates a good meal from an excellent meal is if you can supplement it with a very nice sauce. Today there's about 10 of us cooking, and we're going to be demonstrating various pasta sauces, a gravy, a miso sauce, a dessert sauce, and more. I'm going to be making, this is my first published recipe. It's a variant on that. Way back when the internet, when the World Wide Web was relatively new, there was a book called Tasty Bites, the best of internet cooking, and I was asked to contribute to that. And I had a recipe which was my eggplant pepper sauce. So I've evolved it a bit, and I think you're going to like it. It's pretty easy to make. So eggplant is one of the key ingredients. Eggplant, as well as tomato and pepper, are called nightshades. Potato is a nightshade too. And some of you may have a condition. There are some people who don't do well with nightshades. For some people, it may cause inflammation. And if that's you, you want to avoid these ingredients. But for most people, these are really, really healthy and tasty ingredients. The thing that I like about this is combining eggplant with tomato and with pepper. That combination is really sometimes a surprise, but really quite good. Eggplants are a good source of manganese, antioxidants, and potassium. Some nightshades, including eggplants, have what are called SRGs. SRGs may fight cancer. Now the eggplant, you can see right here, is a beautiful vegetable. It's deep purple, and when you cut it open, it's white, off-white inside. There's different kinds of eggplant. For this dish, I actually prefer Japanese eggplant or neon eggplant because it's much thinner and cooks much faster. But this is the good old Italian eggplant. This is a big one. In the old days, people used to cut the eggplant and they would salt it and put it in a colander and let it sit for an hour or two. And the thought was that it would remove the bitterness from the eggplant. You don't have to do that anymore because eggplant nowadays doesn't have the bitterness that perhaps it did in our grandparents' days. The kinds of varieties farmers are planting, it's not bitter. So I don't bother doing that. Some people feel when you salt it and then you rinse away the salt, it also fries better. I don't fry food. I do air fry with no oil, but I don't find it makes a difference. So I don't salt my eggplant. So that's one thing that might be keeping you from eggplant. You might say, I'd like to cook with eggplant, but I don't want to do all of that. So to make this dish, all I did is I took an eggplant and I cut it into cubes. Oh, and I forgot to mention a little bit about the history. So eggplant was originally from India, and it came to Europe via Islamic traders in the 7th or 8th century. And it's a delicious food. You can do so much with it. So what I did is I took my eggplant and I cut it into roughly 1-inch cubes, and I put some garlic in as well, and I put it in an oven, 450-degree oven, preheated it, and I cooked it for about 15 to 20 minutes. And out it came, and you can see that it's turned a little brown. You can see some of these have turned a little brown, okay? And it's cooked, so that's all I wanted. And then I also prepared a pepper. So this is a bell pepper, And what I did is I flame roasted it just a few minutes ago. And what I did is on the range, I simply put the pepper here, I turned the flame on, and I kept turning it until, as you can see, it's pretty uniformly charred. Ideally, after that, you'll want to put it in a brown bag, and you'll want to crinkle up the brown bag and let it sit for 15, 20 minutes or more so the smoke flavor gets imbued into the pepper. And then at one point after that, when it's cool enough to touch, which this is, I did this about 10 minutes ago, then what you do, and I'm going to do it in a second, I'm sorry, I'm going to turn my back to you, I'm going to go to the sink and I'm going to rinse with water, and I'm going to grab it with my hand and just caress it a little bit, and this black char will mostly come off. I don't have to get all of it off, but I'll get most of it off. So let's go to the kitchen. Let's go to the sink. So all I do is I turn the water on, and I've already poked a hole in it because there'll be some liquid, and that liquid could be hot. And I did that before the show. So you can see I'm just kind of caressing it, rubbing it. And I'm not going to get all of the char off, but I'm going to try to get most of it off. Okay? And that's kind of what you're looking for. Okay, so here's my pepper. And what I'm going to do now, again, what I did is I slit it and I let the liquid come out before the show started. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the top. It's really soft. And I'm going to reach in. It's very soft. I'm just going to grab all these membranes and the seeds, and I'm going to compost all of that. Okay? There we go. And so there's my pepper. And I'm going to chop it. And I'm going to do a shortcut here. I'm going to leave most of it, and I'm going to throw it in the blender, and I'll tell you why in a second. This is going to be blended, so there's no point in spending the time chopping. So there we go. But I am going to chop some of it, and I'm going to chop it so it feels good in the mouth, so maybe 1/2-inch cubes, 3/4-inch cubes. So some of the eggplant, maybe 1/5 of it, goes in my pan. And then this eggplant that's been roasting, okay, most of it goes in the blender. So here goes the eggplant and roasted garlic. I better move this so you can see. Okay, hopefully you can see that. So I'm going to put most of this in here, but I'm going to reserve a little bit of the eggplant, and I'm going to put it in my pot. So the proportion will dictate how chunky your sauce is. If you blend all of it, it's going to be a really smooth sauce. One thing I like to do here is I like to, here's another piece of eggplant, is I sometimes like to put citrus. I love citrus, and this is kind of the end for us in North Carolina of tangerine season. So we're getting these wonderful pixie tangerines, and I'm going to cook with the pixie tangerines. That adds a subtle flavor. It's one thing I like to do with cooking. I like to add subtle flavors. When you use something like a little bit of tangerine, your guests will say, that tastes good. There's something in there that's different from other sauces. So let's put some pixie tangerine in there. And then I have some tomato, and what I used roasted tomatoes. So these are readily available in the supermarket, organic fire roasted tomatoes, diced. You could use a pasta sauce if you'd prefer. You could even, if you want to make it thick, you could use some tomato paste. I like to have tomato paste around, so if I make a soup like this, or a sauce rather, and it's too thin, I can throw in some tomato paste. It's a good ingredient to have handy. So I'm going to put most of a can, not most, I'm going to put a little bit of the tomato sauce, enough so this will blend. Okay, this is a whole can's worth. Okay. Now one thing I'm going to also do is I'm going to add some beans. Beans are so healthy. This, any white bean will do, so I use cannellini beans. I usually make my own beans, but I got some canned beans for today. You can use navy beans. They're really good choices for white beans. Okay. So I'm using cannellini beans, and if you want the most nutrition, use the whole can. I find the whole can gives it a little bit too heavy a feel, so what I'm going to use is 1/3 to 1/2 of the beans. Let's do that, about 1/3. Okay? And if you do that, you really won't taste that much of the bean, but you'll get the good nutrition. Let me just take a look at my recipe to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. We're going to put, let's put the garlic in too. So I have 2 cloves of garlic, and I was being lazy. I didn't chop it very fine. It's going to be blended. So I'm just going to dump that in. To be honest, I didn't really even have to chop it because it's going to be blended. So there goes the garlic. And I think that's all that I need. So I am going to blend. So let me go ahead and go to my blender. I'm using a high-powered blender, but any blender will do. So this particular blender has what's called a tamper, just to get everything down. But if you have a regular blender, just do it in 2 or 3 batches and you won't need something like a tamper. Okay, so that just pushes everything down. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this homogenized sauce, it's pretty thick. I'm going to put it in my pan. Okay, there we go. I find if you're on a low salt diet, you want to skip this, but I find a little bit of salt really helps with acids like tomato. So I'm going to add just a little bit of salt. Okay, a little bit of salt. And then it's awfully thick, so I'm going to add the rest of the sauce in here. Oh, it's looking really good. I wish you were here to smell it. It smells great. And I'm going to start heating it. The secret of a good sauce, a good Italian sauce, is to simmer for a long time. So sauces like this actually taste better after the fact. So you will enjoy the sauce and then come back to it, refrigerate it, and the next day or day after, when you enjoy it, it'll taste even better. Okay, so let's add that. Now we can start dressing it up. There's a number of optional ingredients. I'm going to add some olives. Okay, you can also add capers or neither. I wouldn't add both. It's just a little too salty then, and they kind of compete with each other. So capers or olives or neither. So there go I just half the olives. Okay, so there's the olives. You can add, if you'd like, sun-dried tomatoes. I do have a package of sun-dried tomatoes. I'm not going to use it. Sun-dried tomatoes are great. They're intense in flavor. You should avoid buying the sun-dried tomatoes that come in a bottle that are in oil. This has, the ingredients are simply organic sun-dried tomatoes and sea salt. What I do is I put this in a bowl of water for at least 5 minutes. Longer is better. The salt will come away and it'll become nice and soft and you can chop it. It adds a really nice other tomato exponent to your dish, which is quite good. And I'll also add some seasonings. So I'm going to add some lemon pepper. Lemon pepper is really tasty. I'm going to add some garlic powder. Now it's interesting because there's roasted garlic and fresh garlic in here and garlic powder as well. So they taste different. I don't know if you've noticed that. And by the way, we have some good giveaways today. And feel free to ask any questions. I can't see your questions right now, but my colleagues behind the scenes might be able to answer some. And I'll be back behind the computer right after my segment. But we're going to do a giveaway during the Q&A. When we're all done cooking, at the end, we'll all be there and we'll take questions. And at that point, when you ask questions, you'll be in the running for some of our giveaways. Okay? I also like crushed red pepper or chili powder. I'm going to add just a little bit. My daughter's going to be enjoying some of this in a dish, and she doesn't like a lot of heat, so I'm just adding a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and add some fresh herbs. So here's some oregano. When I use fresh herbs, then I tend to add them late in the cooking because they have a lot of volatility and the flavor goes away. So let's add some fresh herbs. And today when I was walking back from my co-op, we have some rosemary at home, but there's this beautiful rosemary bush that was just down the street from the co-op, and I couldn't resist but take a little bit of the rosemary. So I'm going to put a little rosemary in. I love rosemary. It's a wonderful herb. Okay. Sage goes great with this also. Okay. And other Italian herbs go great too. Okay. And that's it. I think I put everything I claimed I was going to put in. Let me take a quick look. You could add, one thing that I am missing is onion, and we'll talk about that in a second. You could add thyme. Thyme goes great with this as well. Let me show you something with onion. So Onion tastes different depending on how you chop it. Many of us are used to diced onion, but with this dish, I'm going to do a half moon. I've already cut part of the onion, and I'm going to cut it with my knife so you end up with a half moon, like so. I'm going to put a lot of it in, but I'm going to put some of it in, okay? So let's put just a little bit of this in. So you see, these are half moons. You see how that looks? It's a half moon. Now, why does this taste different than a cubed onion? Because the half moon envelopes your tongue, and you may know that the tongue has different taste receptors, and by doing that, you're picking up some of the sweetness in the onion, some of the umami in the onion, some of the bitterness in the onion. So just put a little bit. In my family, my daughter doesn't like onions, so I'm putting very little bit. You could add more. And I'm going to call that success. I'm actually going to turn the heat off. Now, if I were doing this for a meal, I would let it simmer for at least 10-15 minutes, but I am going to instead just sample it and see what it's like. It's going to be hot. Oh, it's very good. I love it. I might add a tiny bit more salt. I might actually add a little bit more tangerine. The tangerine adds a nice flavor to it as well. It adds a little bit of sweetness, and I think the tangerine would go well with this. And I think when we're done, I'm going to add just a bit more tangerine. But that's it. This is a wonderful all-purpose sauce. You can put this on top of pasta. I'm thinking tomorrow of making possibly lasagna, and this would be my sauce. My daughter loves lasagna. This would be a wonderful sauce. It's nutritious, and I'm going to have lots of things in the lasagna, like beans and maybe tofu, so it's going to be a very nice meal. I can just put this on top of pasta noodles. So I hope you enjoyed this. I loved making this. It was my pleasure to be here with you today. And I wanted to mention one of the other cooks in the kitchen, Carolyn Strickland, is coming, not next, but soon. And Carolyn's making her version. She has another recipe. It's, I think, a roasted red pepper recipe. So she's also going to roast peppers. It's going to be a different approach than mine. It's probably going to be at least as good as mine. So you have a couple different ways to make a sauce like this. So our next speaker, I'm really excited to introduce Janin Orhan in Abu Dhabi. So Janin is making a cauliflower sauce. Check it out. Take it away, Janin.
Thank you, Dilip, and welcome to my kitchen in Abu Dhabi. Merhaba, as we say here. As Dilip, I will be talking about a sauce today. Our theme is sauces, and I've made one of my favorite, easy to make sauces for you. It's a cauliflower sauce. Maybe we can even call it cauliflower and bean sauce, but sometimes I don't make it with beans, therefore I call it my cauliflower sauce. So as always, I make easy recipes. This is something that you pop into your blender, all the ingredients, and whiz it up, and your sauce is ready. Most often I use it for pasta, and that's another reason why I make this sauce, because in the pot that I heat the water and get it ready for my pasta, I first cook the cauliflower. So it saves me one pot to work with. So today I've already cooked my cauliflower. It was double the size of that. So it's about one big handful, which makes 1 cup. And I have some parsley here that I haven't cut yet. So the beans and the cauliflower and all the spices and everything went in there except for the salt and the pepper, which I add afterwards just to adjust the flavoring. Some word of caution for the water. I use, with this recipe, I use about a half a cup of water, and in the recipe it also suggests that you can use half a cup of vegetable milk, oat milk, whatever you like. It makes it lighter, creamier, and a bit more flavorful, but I often don't have vegetable milks at home, therefore I go for the cooking water. For ease of, or for saving time, I've already put everything and whizzed it a few times. I will give it another whiz and test it, but another reason why I make this recipe is because it's so nutritionally good for you. It's a nutrition bomb. The 1 cup of beans and the 1 cup of cauliflower joined together will give you about 20-21 grams of fiber. And okay, we do share it with my husband, so 10 grams for him, 10 grams for me, I guess. But 20 grams of fiber is really important. As we always say, people who don't eat plant-based ask us, but where do you get your calcium and where do you get your protein? And our comeback question to them is, where do you get your fiber? So we recommend 40 grams per day per person, and this sauce gives a good 20 grams. Therefore, that's one of the things that I like about it. And it does have really good, it has something like 18 grams of protein as well, because the beans are about 16 grams. And even good old humble cauliflower in 1 cup has about 2 grams of protein. Apart from that, the two combined will give you a lot of minerals. The beans are very high in minerals, especially calcium and iron and potassium, all good and necessary for you. And what better way to get it from your food? And then the cauliflower is high in vitamins C and K, both of which are very necessary for our good functioning. And combined, it's really good for you. Words of caution about the water and the lemon juice. I like things zingy with like a lot of lemon, and so I use 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in mine, but experiment with it. If you like it more lemony or less lemony, adjust that. And then the water, of course, at the beginning put less and then add a little bit more if it's too thick or so. It's always easier to add more than to take it out. Often I said I make this recipe also without beans, so if you haven't soaked them and cooked them the night before, or if you don't have already cooked beans, my cheat, I buy these all the time, so I have them in the pantry. So if you don't have already cooked beans, you can also do it with only cauliflower. It works just fine, but at which time you need to really adjust the water, because cauliflower is much more watery than the cooked beans. Therefore, you don't want it too liquidy. Well, you could be creative and use it for a soup rather than a sauce. Anyway, so work with it, use your creativity, and it's a lovely sauce to have. Another good thing about it is that if you make a big batch, this little guy makes enough for us for 1 pasta plus a little bit extra for use creatively any other time. But if you make a bigger batch, you can freeze it and thaw it later for whatever use you want. I said pasta, but I also use this sauce with risotto. When you make a wonderful plant-based risotto which doesn't have in it any Parmesan cheese and other animal products, this sauce gives it a wonderful creaminess that you would have got from using cheese. Therefore, I add it at the end and let it rest with the risotto and give it a stir afterwards. It is wonderful. Another favorite way of use for me is on roasted vegetables, and especially roasted eggplant. I love making this sauce, or the leftovers from this, from using it with pasta today, but I will have roasted eggplants tomorrow, and the leftover will go on the roasted eggplants, which is awesome. So later I will chop my parsley because it goes very nicely on the pasta with this white sauce. And excuse me, and the lemon zest. Whenever I squeeze some lemon, I make really good use of the skin. I don't like wasting it, and I love the taste of lemon zest. Therefore, this will go on our pasta as well. So use your creativity, and some chili flakes. This, at the moment, is not a spicy sauce, but afterwards you can add some chili flakes to give it a yummy, spicy feeling. Also, you can change the flavor profile completely by adding curry powder or other spices that you like. It's a versatile sauce. This is the base. You can get creative. Actually, please send us in if you use it in any other way and how creatively you've changed it to your liking. I'd love to hear that. Our recipes are online in the recipe booklet, and do please send us your questions. We will answer them at the end, but let me go back to my sauce now. Here it is. And I usually turn it here because it helps me with opening it later. I don't have so many strong muscles. I gotta work on those arm muscles. So here's my sauce. It's nice and creamy. Look at it. Absolutely gorgeous. And perfectly to my liking. I will add some pepper and maybe a tiny bit of salt. And those of you who don't like salt or don't use salt for health reasons, please be careful because the recipe does have nutritional yeast and white miso. White miso because so the sauce can stay a lighter color. So you can avoid putting extra salt into your recipe. That's all from me today. I passed the baton to Ella in Providence, Rhode Island. So here we go all the way from Abu Dhabi to Rhode Island. Take it away, Ella. See you next time, everyone. Bye.
Hi, thank you, Canon. Hi, everybody. I'm Ella Rodriguez, and welcome to Rhode Island. Today, I'm going to make my family's favorite nacho sauce. To use the nacho sauce, to make the nacho sauce, we use cashews. And the best cashews that you could use are the raw cashews. But if you have a hard time finding them where you are right now, you can totally get the roasted cashews and just rinse them really good before you use them. Soak them for a little bit of time and then a couple hours and then or overnight. And then you can just use them. But if you have a strong blender like a Vitamix, I find myself that I don't really need to soak them. But you can totally do that. So to start the recipe, that's gonna be the base. So I have about a cup and a half of cashews. Normally when I make nacho sauce, I kind of fill out the whole blender for my family. So I kind of double up the recipes. But, and that's for a family of 4 when we're having nachos. With beans and corn and tomatoes and cilantro and just like load them up like that. But depends on how you're planning to use, you know, you can make more or less, but we double it up. So to the half of the cup of cashews, I'm going to add some water to the blender. And the thing that kind of makes a nacho sauce for us is the roasted red pepper. I'm going to put about, you can totally roast your own pepper, that'll be great. But you know, when I'm rushing and I make this sauce a lot for us, I like to have canned of roasted red pepper around us. So I'm just going to put 1 roasted red pepper right in there. And to that, I'm going to just add some seasoning. So basically that's all it is, right? Now, I wrote in the recipe for those of you who are trying to avoid nuts for the fat content or just you're allergic to nuts, you can use cannellini beans, similar result, you know, slightly different. So you're gonna have to adjust the seasonings and so on for yourself. But that's something that sometimes I use instead of cannellini beans. If I'm serving it to somebody who has allergies to nuts. Next, I'm going to add nutritional yeast, which is really useful in vegan cooking. I put about half a cup of nutritional yeast to this. It really gives it that cheesy kind of flavor that a lot of times we're missing, I guess, in the vegan cooking. And garlic powder. I'm gonna put about 1.5 teaspoons. But again, this the amount of seasonings is really more like a guideline. You'll have to make the sauce yourself and then decide if you like it stronger flavor or less and so on. Cumin, it's something that I really like to add to my nacho sauce. So again, about 1.5 teaspoons. And then a little bit of salt. Now again, if you're using roasted salted cashews, I like to rinse mine really well, but sometimes they still have some salt residue, so you might not even need to add any salt to it. I found that I kind of need about 1/2 teaspoon or so I'm just gonna eyeball it. 1/2 teaspoon or so of salt. And I like to use the iodized salt just because we don't tend to have lots of iodine in our diet unless we eat, seaweed or something like that. So I like to use this salt. So that's about it. That's all I have. Now I'm just gonna put it in a blender and blend it up until it's nice and smooth. And that's gonna be our little sauce. Wasn't that easy? With ingredients that I have in my pantry most of the time. Here we go. That's all it is. Look at that beautiful little color, orange color of the nacho sauce. Now you'll notice that I make it a little bit on the thinner side the first time because the cashews in it tend to thicken as the sauce stays overnight. So you can totally put a little bit more cashew, less water to make it a little bit thicker if that's what you would like. And that's it. I just kind of pour this directly actually from the blender right on my nachos whenever we were eating it. And yeah, you can serve it whichever way you want to, but that's our family's nacho sauce. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll give it a try. I hope you create your own nacho sauce recipe. You got inspired by this, and I'm going to pass it on to Mark. Thank you.
Thanks, Ella. That looks fantastic. I love nacho cheese sauce. I love nacho cheese sauce on my nacho cheese sauce on my nacho chips. So we're going to give that a shot for sure. So, hello, everybody. Mark Cirkovac. Let's Eat Great Food. You can find me at let'seatgreat.com or any of my vegan no oil tours at Let's Eat Great Food or Veg Jaunts and Journeys. So today I'm going to do a remoulade sauce. A remoulade sauce is traditionally served with shellfish such as crab or shrimp. I recently made this remoulade sauce on my trip to Charleston, where we served vegan crab cakes and put a nice remoulade sauce on that. So today we're going to make this a really quick sauce, and you could use this sauce not only on things like crab cakes, like vegan crab cakes, but think about it as a dipping sauce or perhaps a sandwich spread or even a really nice dressing for a little change up. So it's got a little bit of tartness, just a little bit of heat, and then some special flavors from the capers. So we're going to first of all start with a vegan mayo. I make my own vegan mayo, and it's so easy. You're going to write this down and you're going to remember this. Here it is. You're going to take 1 package of silken tofu or soft tofu, silken tofu or soft tofu, 1 tablespoon of red wine vinegar, a pinch of garlic salt, a pinch of onion powder, and taste that. If it needs a little bit more salt, add a little bit more salt. Needs a little bit more garlic, some more garlic salt or garlic powder, or some onion powder. Make it to your tasting. I like mine a very specific way. I don't like a very sweet one. I like a mayo that's a little bit more tart. So again, one more time, you're going to write this down. It's silken tofu, a tablespoon of red wine vinegar, a pinch of garlic salt or garlic powder for that matter, a pinch of onion powder, a little bit of salt, taste it, adjust the seasonings according to your palate. So in this goes my vegan mayo, and along with that, in my bowl with my quarter cup of vegan mayo goes some Dijon mustard, goes some smoked paprika. We're also going to put a little bit of cayenne pepper and Old Bay seasoning. Old Bay seasoning takes us right to the sea. Kind of a standard. It's got celery salt amongst other things, some more paprika, and 1/2 teaspoon of lemon juice, some capers, and we're just going to mix this all up really nice, and it's going to turn this kind of really pretty pinkish red color. You know, it's going to mix that up really, really nice. And again, this could be served on your crab cakes. It could be also used as a sandwich spread or a salad dressing. Almost looks like Thousand Island, like your classic Thousand Island dressing. Or I'm going to use it as a little dipping sauce here. I'm just going to sit down and have these little snacks here after I get done with my portion of today's show, and just dip some carrots and celery in it. Let me give this a taste. Really good. It's got a little bit of tartness, a little bit of the creaminess from the silken tofu, and a little bit of heat. So go ahead and give that a shot for sauce, a Remoulade sauce, and hope you enjoy it. If you're interested in what I do, a little bit more about what I do, please go to let'seatgreat.com or on Facebook at Let's Eat Great Food, or check out the whole food plant-based no oil tours that I cook at. I'm the chef for at vegjohnsonjourneys.com, or you can go to my website and select the travel section of my website, and you'll see all the upcoming tours. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and turn it back over the pond, over to Nancy. And Nancy's got one of my favorite, mushroom gravy. Take it away, Nancy.
Thank you, Mark. Your remoulade looks absolutely delicious. I'm Nancy Manifold, and I'm going to show you how to make my creamy mushroom gravy. So I start with white mushrooms. You can use whatever mushrooms you like, but because there's so many other rich flavors in this gravy, I use white mushrooms because I find they're the mildest. So what I'm going to start with is water sauteing the mushrooms. So I turn the burner on here, and rather than use oil, which I find is unnecessary calories, I use water. So I have a cup of water here, and I just add a few tablespoons of water into the pan until it's starting to bubble. And then once it's bubbling, I'll turn that up a little bit. So it's just starting to bubble, and I'm adding my chopped mushrooms. So I've chopped the mushrooms into fairly small pieces, not tiny, but reasonably small. Put that there. Now, as you are likely very aware with mushrooms, they release a lot of water. So what happens is, as I cook this in the water, the mushrooms release their own water and add to the liquid in the pan. But that having been said, when the water does evaporate, just add a little bit more water that you have here. And just slowly and gently saute the mushrooms. Now, one thing I hadn't realized until fairly recently is that mushrooms are actually not plants. I had no idea. I assumed they were plants. So I thought that was kind of interesting, actually. They are in the fungus family, which are not plants. And apparently the difference is that plants are capable of producing their own food through photosynthesis, whereas mushrooms, most of the mushroom is underground. And apparently what mushrooms do is they release enzymes into their surroundings, which breaks down soil, substances in the soil, and mushrooms absorb that as food. And that's why mushrooms are very important in the decaying and regeneration process. I just thought that was kind of interesting because I never knew. I just assumed they're plants, but they're not, apparently. So sauteing the mushrooms, I don't know if you can see from that distance, but there's still a little bit of water in here, and the mushrooms aren't quite cooked yet. But as the water evaporates, I add a bit more. And if there's any brown on the bottom of the pan, I just deglaze it, scrape it off, and it just adds a very nice, delicious part to the recipe. So what I would do is I would continue that for another few minutes until the mushrooms have shrunk down and fully browned. But for the sake of speed, I will not do all of that now. So I do have some mushrooms that I've already prepared. So I'll move this over here. And in my pan here, I'll put a little bit more water. And here I have 200 grams of mushrooms that I've already chopped up and sauteed. So I'm going to put that in there. It's like a here's one I prepared earlier kind of trick. Okay, so you can hear that cooking. Now to thicken the sauce, the gravy, I have 30 grams of whole wheat flour. I think it's about 2 tablespoons. In the UK, we tend to do measurements by weight rather than volume. If you're wondering why I'm doing all of this in grams. And what I'm doing is I'm mixing that in. So I've got the flour and the mushrooms mixed together, and I'm just stirring to coat the mushrooms. Scraping the bottom, making sure it doesn't burn, and just giving that a little bit of a mix. What I do next is I have 750 mils, which is 3 cups of vegetable stock. Which I'm pouring in now, I aim to use low salt stock. It's entirely up to you what you prefer to use, but this is low salt stock. And stock is broth, it's the same thing. And what I'm going to do now is whisk this and boil it until it thickens. So it's important when you're making it that the flour cooks. You don't want this to taste of raw flour. So I'm just putting the temperature up, and I'm stirring this a bit until it thickens. What I'm going to add, once it's thickened, the flavorings I'm using, which give a very nice umami flavor, is something called Miso Paste. And if you can see that, it comes in a very small jar. I think in the United States you can get it in a much larger jar. And I'm using white Miso Paste. So Miso Paste, that's what I have here. Miso Paste is fermented soybeans, and it's usually fermented with a grain. And the grain in the one I'm using in particular is rice. And depending on the culture that's used to ferment the soybeans, as well as the length of fermentation, will affect, that's my understanding, it will affect the color of the miso paste. And the darker the miso paste, the stronger the flavor. So I'm using the white miso paste because I find that gives a strong enough flavor for my liking. And I'll be adding that in a minute. And the other thing I'll be adding is something called nutritional yeast. And if you have a look in the questions, I'm sure they will give a very good explanation. One of my colleagues will give a very good explanation of nutritional yeast. But it is basically inactive yeast. It's not baker's yeast, it's inactive yeast. And it adds a really nice flavor. It can often be used as a cheese substitute. It has a cheesy taste and a cheesy texture, but it's vegan. Okay, so I need to turn this down. I'm now boiling my gravy, which is really not what I intended. So this is just starting to thicken. So I'm now going to add my other flavors. So as I said before, I have the miso. I have miso paste. I have 1 tablespoon of miso paste. I'm adding that in. I am adding in 15 grams of nutritional yeast, which measures out at about ½ a cup. I have a teaspoon of onion granules. I'm putting that in. Oh, that doesn't want to fall in. I think it got some of the steam there and stuck together. And I'm adding 1 tablespoon of soy sauce. So with the miso and the soy sauce, that's where, and the nutritional yeast, that's what gives this just such a delicious umami flavor. And because there's a little bit of salt in the soy sauce naturally, that's why I've used the low salt, vegetable broth. So So I've got that. I'm mixing this all together and adding some black pepper to taste. I'm just checking, make sure I haven't forgotten anything. No, that's everything. And then what I do is I just gently stir this and let it thicken. There's also a slightly different mushroom gravy recipe on the Physicians Committee website if you are at all interested. And for those who don't know, the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine if you go onto their website, they have some fantastic information sheets, recipes, a 21-day Kickstart program. It really is a fantastic resource for anybody who wants to start a plant-based diet or reboot a plant-based diet. And I would strongly recommend having a look there. If you're in the UK, I think I've mentioned this before, if you live in, I live in the United Kingdom, and if you're over here, there's also a group called Plant-Based Health Professionals UK. They also have a very good website with information sheets, which is more UK geared in terms of terminology and values. Values, I mean measurements of things. Okay, so I don't know if you can see, but this is thickened nicely and cooked nicely. So what I do is, well, you can do one of two things. You can either have it like this, or what I like to do is blend it with the stick blender and create a smoother gravy. So wish me luck here that this doesn't just fly all over the place. It hasn't before, but being on camera is a very different thing. So let's see. There we go. And so what I do, the stick blender I think is a fantastic revolution. It used to be that things like this, you had to pour in batches into the food processor, blend, and then pour it out, and then pour the next batch. Whereas with the stick blender, it's do it all in one go. So this would be nice on anything. We often have it on potatoes, vegetables, and seitan, which is a plant-based meat substitute. And just smoothing that, blending that, and there we've got it. I've partly blended it, but it's not fully blended because it will take a few minutes to do that. And there we have an absolutely delicious mushroom gravy. Very healthy, great source of B vitamins with the mushrooms, no added fat, and fantastic flavor because of the mushrooms and the miso, nutritional yeast, and the soy sauce. So there we go. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'm now going to pass you over to Melissa, who is making a Romesco sauce. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of viewers making that. Thank you. Great demonstration. I love this show, Making Sauces. My name is Melissa Sherlock, and I'm in Omaha, Nebraska. The reason I love this show is because we need these sauces for this dietary lifestyle. We need flavorful sauces and gravies and things to put on our yummy vegetables and whole grains. And all of those that you buy, it seems like in the store that are prepared, have a lot of oil in them. So we're showing you all these sauces with no oil. So today I'm going to make a Romesco sauce, not Romanesco, which is that chartreuse vegetable, but Romesco sauce is a sauce from the Catalonian region of Spain. And in that region, it was created, I think, to eat with fish and vegetables. And they say there are as many recipes for Romesco dip as there are Catalonians. So everybody kind of has their super secret recipe. And so you can get a lot of variants in it. The recipe that I'm making today is very much like the Romesco dip that you get at Trader Joe's. If you haven't tried it yet, try it. It does have a little oil. It's not bad. It's not too bad, but I did want to make one without oil. And so mine is very, very, very close to the Trader Joe's one, and there's no reason to have the oil in there at all. You don't miss it at all. So this sauce relies on flavor from roasted red bell peppers. You need a 12-ounce jar, and you just need to make sure that it's not packed in oil. It should be packed in its own juices or in water. Don't get it packed in oil. Obviously, that kind of defeats the purpose. So I have drained this, and these are roasted in the oven. You can also roast your own bell peppers, red bell peppers, very, very easily. So if you find them on sale, you just cut them in half and put them down on a baking sheet, skin side up in a very hot oven, like 425, and you just roast them until the skin gets kind of blackened and papery. You take those out of the oven, remove those skins, cut them into big slices or chunks, and drop them into a jar where they will collect their own juice. So you can make your own. For this, I went ahead and bought a jar of roasted red peppers that have no oil. Some of the recipes focus more on roasted tomatoes. Now this one has both. I'm just using some from a can. I only need a 1/4 cup, and so I'm using it from this fire roasted tomatoes. The fire roasting, the roasting of the peppers, those are flavor builders. They build flavor into the dish. So I'm using fire roasted tomatoes. You could use regular tomatoes as well. It has red wine vinegar in it. We have paprika, and I'm using a Hungarian paprika, and I'm also adding a little bit of smoked paprika. The recipe calls for regular paprika, but I'm just gonna add a little bit of the smoked, so it gives this already deeply flavorful sauce a little bit of a smoky flavor. Then we've got salt and pepper, and the dish, the sauce has almonds in it that give it some structure, and some almond butter. And so some of the traditional recipes, they actually added breadcrumbs to the sauce. But I like the structure of this one with the almonds. And so then it also has quite a bit of garlic. You can cut back on the garlic if you're not a big fan of garlic. I am, and this sauce is so fabulous on pasta, I think, because of the nice garlicky flavor. And then we have quite a bit of Italian parsley added to the sauce, and then our seasonings. So the sauce is so easy and so versatile. It will stay in the fridge for 5 or 6 days. And also you can freeze it. So if you freeze it in a jar, I like to keep mine in a jar in the fridge, or if you want to freeze it in a jar, just make sure to leave a little room at the top so that it can expand when it freezes. So the first thing I'm going to do, I have my food processor, and I'm starting with sliced almonds. You could also use slivered almonds or even whole almonds, but I want to break them down a little bit, and I always have sliced or slivered almonds for salads. So you can also use other nuts. I've heard some of the recipes use hazelnuts, but I really like the almonds. Do you know almonds are one of the lowest calorie nuts? So I'm going to put in my sliced almonds, and I certainly don't want to make almond butter, but I want to break them down a little bit. If I add everything at once, those almonds just have a little bit of trouble getting to be as fine as I like them to be. So I'm just going to... So about that much. That's all you have to do to break it down a little bit, because they will break down again when we blend everything. So that's the almonds. I'm going to just add the bell peppers. They're kind of in big chunks here, you can see. In fact, I might just go ahead and cut them into some bigger pieces. So they smell so wonderful. And then I'm going to add the 1/4 cup of roasted, I bought canned fire roasted tomatoes. You can see it has a lot more of the bell pepper than it does the tomato. I'm going to add the garlic, and this is, I think, 5 or 6 cloves, and I just kind of cut it into a little bit smaller pieces to put in the food processor. My Italian parsley, which I've already cut with a knife, and then this almond butter, which is going to be a sticky one. Let's see if we can get it out of here. This is just from a jar of almond butter. And then I'm going to add my seasoning. So I've got salt and pepper, the paprika, a little bit of smoked paprika, but you don't have to use the smoked. And then some pepper. I also added a little garlic powder, just in case there's not enough garlic, and a little bit of cayenne pepper because I want just a little bit of kick. And then I've added a little bit of like an Italian blend, but you don't have to add those if you don't like. So you're just really dumping it all together after you break down the almonds just a little bit. And then I'm going to show you all the ways you can use this. I'm going to scrape it down a couple of times. It looks like it could use a little bit more juice. I did drain the, I'm going to add just a little bit of tomato juice in there because it looks a little dry. Okay, now it is your desire how blended you want this. Some people like it really smooth. I like to have some structure to the sauce. So mine looks like this. So you can see that it has parsley and garlic in it, and it's a little bit pinkish from the tomatoes and the red bell peppers. So now I'm going to show you some of the ways I use it. My very favorite way to use it is on pasta. This is a 100% whole wheat pasta, and I'm just going to put it on this pasta, and I would warm the sauce, of course, and I just am going to stir it through the pasta and eat it that way. It has all of the flavor that you need with a little bit of crunch from the almonds. It's really nice. And then I'm going to have it as a dip. So I have some cut vegetable crudité and some pita crackers here, and I'm going to serve this as an appetizer. You could put it on a charcuterie board, so you could have it that way. I just like it on vegetables, so I'm a big green bean fan, and so I'm just going to spoon some on my green beans. Or you could do a green bean casserole with it that has a little bit of the sliced almonds on top. Really good on almost any vegetable. You can also add it as a layer in a sandwich. I've even used this as a layer in my veggie lasagna. Really good. So there are so many ways to use it. I know that you're gonna love it if you make it. I should make a double batch when I make this so that I can freeze one and have one available. So I really hope you enjoy this Romesco dip, and reminiscent of the Catalonian region of Spain. Now we are going to turn it over to Susanna. And Susanna, I can't wait to see how yours turns out.
Thanks, Melissa. Your sauce looks so good. Hi, everyone. My name is Susanna Dickman, and I'm from Evansville, Indiana. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy Saturday to watch our show. Today, I'm going to be making a marinara sauce that I have literally made since I started cooking, which was when I got married. My husband and I were in college and money was tight, so, you know, a marinara sauce was something that was easy to make. It was inexpensive and without meat. We always made it without meat because, again, we didn't have enough money to purchase it. I loved putting it in my crock pot or my slow cooker, which I still do till this day. In college, it was great because I could put it in the morning, put the spices in, turn it on low, go to class, go to my job at the library, and come home. And we'd have a delicious meal with pasta, probably for 3 or 4 days because I always made a big batch. You can freeze the sauce for up to 6 months if you want to, or it'll last in your fridge for about 5 or so days. As our family grew, I continued to make this marinara sauce. I also, when my kids were little, started adding other things to it. Today I'm going to add mushrooms to it just to get more texture and also to add some more nutrients. We know how good mushrooms are for us. Sometimes I'll even add shredded carrots. I always wanted my children when they were little to eat carrots. And they often didn't want to. So adding the shredded carrots, they wouldn't know that they were there, but they just added a thickness. So instead of cutting these mushrooms, I'm just going to pulse them a little bit to get them chopped up. Okay, I'm going to have to move these big ones around a little bit. Let me get them pushed down and do this again. One more time. This is what happens when you fill it up a lot. I'm going to go ahead and take out these big ones so I can get those down on the blade, and we'll get those going. There we go. Couple more. It doesn't matter, you just as long as they're all right. I'm just going to take out these big chunks and I will save them for later. But there are my mushrooms. Let me get those in my slow cooker. All right. Let me get those in there. I love mushrooms. We know mushrooms are very healthy for us. They have anti-cancer properties. So you really want to incorporate mushrooms in your diet every day if possible. And I know for me, even though my sons are older, they really don't care for mushrooms that much. So when they're in the sauce, they don't even know that they're eating them. Okay, so my sauce, as I said, is very simple. I'm using canned tomato sauce. You can use jarred if you prefer. I I like to pick these up. So let's get in there. We're going to make a big batch. So we're going to use 4 cans of tomato sauce. All right. And then we'll put on our spices. So that's 2. Here's the 3rd. You could cut this recipe in half if you don't want to make so much. And of course, you can cook it on your stovetop if you want to. Then, you'll just have to check it more often. That's why I like putting it in the slow cooker. Okay, so there's my 4 cans. It does make quite a bit. Now I'm going to use diced tomatoes, and I'm going to use their sauce too, because this will add some water, but I typically don't like to add any water. I like my sauce to be really thick, and that's what I find happens when I let it cook. We know when tomatoes cook for a long time, their flavor just intensifies. The last tomato product I'm going to use is tomato paste, and I'm going to use the whole can. I find tomato paste, again, as a thickener and also just adds another depth of flavor. So there we go. I'm not even, I'm going to add onion powder and garlic powder. You can, obviously, if you want to, you can chop onions and garlic, but For me, this is one of those recipes where it's just, I'm gonna, pour everything in the pan and go. So here I have onion powder and garlic powder. And my spices, I have oregano, basil, thyme, and parsley, and just a little pinch of red pepper flakes. Now, if you like it a little bit spicier, you could go ahead and add more. In this whole thing, I only added 1/8 of a teaspoon, but you can add more if you want it. My sauce then, I'm going to mix this to make sure it's all incorporated, and I'm going to turn my slow cooker on low and cook it for 4 to 5 hours. Checking it, near around 4 hours and just tasting it, seeing, are there any other spices do you need to add for more flavor? But I'm gonna tilt this just a little bit for you to see. It already is pretty thick, but it's just gonna be so good, and it's hands off. This is all that I do, is just put all this in and I am done. So the finished product, here's just a little bit of sauce on some pasta. We've used this sauce, as I said, on pasta, as a lasagna sauce. When I'm making lasagna, I like to make a big batch, keep it in the freezer. Sometimes I'll freeze it in little silicone muffin cups, because if I just want to take out a little bit, let's say, I want it for pizza, then I'll take out a little bit. Lasagna, pasta, it's just a great sauce to use for anything where you need a good marinara sauce. It's nice and thick and fresh tasting. You can add some fresh basil on top, some faux Parmesan. I like to make a Parmesan cheese with cashews and nutritional yeast and a little bit of onion powder and garlic powder. Or if you're nut-free, you can use sesame seeds. But I hope you try this marinara, whether in your slow cooker or on your stove, because it's just a great, inexpensive recipe and way to make a delicious plant-based meal that has, all the antioxidants and lycopene from tomatoes, and over a good pasta, gluten-free pasta too. All right, so thanks so much for watching. Next is Cody in Omaha, Nebraska. All right, Cody, it's all yours. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Susanna. Your marinara recipe looks fantastic. I've been looking for a really great one, so I'm excited to try yours. So thank you for sharing that with us. And welcome everybody to my kitchen in Omaha, Nebraska. I am Cody Stubbe. And today I'm going to share with you just a really easy and delicious little miso sauce that you can put on like Buddha bowls or stir fries. It just works fantastic, and it's super easy to whip up with just very few ingredients. So I'm excited to share that with you today. So first of all, our main ingredient is going to be miso paste. And I just like to use like a mellow white miso. And if you're not familiar with what miso is, it's actually soybeans, and these are organic, and they actually combine them with koji spores, and they're fermented. And there's also a little bit of salt in here, and it's got Blue Ridge Mountain well water in it. So this is a really great brand. It's organic, and this actually came from Asheville, North Carolina. So it's really high quality stuff, great ingredients. And it's going to be a great location. I'm planning to do a retreat there coming up soon, and hopefully you can hear more details about that coming up shortly. So, all right, so this is our main ingredient, and what's great about miso too, like I said, it's a fermented food. It allows a little bit of a kind of a salty, savory flavor to things. So if you're looking for that flavor, miso is a great way to go. It does need to be stored in the refrigerator. And if you get like a white miso, over time it can get a little bit darker because it's doing more fermentation. And there is a darker version available that you can get. I think it's called red or brown miso. And that's just been, like I said, fermented longer. It's got more of a stronger flavor to it. So I usually get the white just for a lighter flavor. So this is a fantastic ingredient, you guys. All right, and I'm doubling this recipe, just so you know. So I'm gonna give you the double measurements. So I also have in here 1/4, actually I doubled it, so it's 1/2 cup of white rice vinegar. And I just went ahead and put in this little thing, and you can either use a mixer like this, or you can do it like in a bowl with a nice little whisk. Either way is totally fine. The whisk way takes just a little bit longer, but it's no problem. And the kids usually do it the whisk way, of course. All right, so I've doubled it. So I have 1/2 cup white rice vinegar, and I got my 2 tablespoons of my miso paste here. I'm just gonna dump that in there. All right, and I'm also gonna put in 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. So hopefully you can find peanut butter with just the peanuts in it. You can make your own in a Vitamix, and that's really easy and fun to do. Kids like to do that. And I got 2 tablespoons of pure maple syrup. All right. Now, if you want a little kick, and I didn't put this in my recipe, you could put in a little bit of chili pepper paste. This is organic. It wouldn't take much, probably just like maybe 1/4 of a teaspoon of it. And of course, if you want it more heat, you put in more than that. So we usually just like this plain, but I just wanted to show you that there's another great option here for you if you want to look a little kick to it. All right, and then I'm just gonna put the lid on here, and you wanna make sure that's nice and tight. You don't want stuff all over your countertop. Look how nice that blends it up. I think that's pretty good. All right. Oh yeah, that smells so good, you guys. All right, so if you can look at that, it's got a lot of flavor to it, so you don't really need much. And I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit on here. Let me show you first what I have in my Buddha bowl. And this is great. I made this stuff up the night before. We had them for supper last night. It was fantastic. And so I have roasted sweet potatoes. I just roast those in the oven. A lot of times I put a little sprinkled garlic powder on it, and a can of black beans that are rinsed and drained with no salt. And then just some chopped greens. You could do kale, you can do mixed salad, whatever you want for your greens. And then we got whole grain brown rice here, of course. Some red peppers and some red cabbage, which is purple. My girls absolutely still love that. It's one of their favorites. So what you can do is you can just pour a little bit of this on here, just drizzle it around. Yum, yum, yum. There you go. And then we're just gonna mix it on up, and we're gonna have it for lunch today. So I know Nora's excited to eat this with me, and the rest of my family's gonna be excited that I made some of this miso sauce. So I hope you enjoy it as well, and stick around for Q&A if you have any questions, or you can put them in the chat box. And thank you for joining me in Omaha, Nebraska. Again, this is Cody Stubbe, and I'm gonna pass it on over to Karen Osborne. So take it away, Karen.
Thanks, Cody. That really looks good. So yes, I'm Karen Osborne. I'm here in Austin, Texas. Welcome to my kitchen. It's myfoodfitnessandfun.com. It's my website. And today I'm going to show you a really simple Worcestershire sauce. So everybody has trouble pronouncing it. It looks like Worcestershire. Shire is actually like, I believe, what they call the city, but when it's in a word like the sauce, it's kind of sure. So Worcestershire. We used to call it Worcester sauce when I was a kid, but it's very simple. It adds a lot of flavor to whatever you're using it in, and it was named after Worcester, England, where it was created. But it actually has Indian origins. I didn't know. So it's said, Lee and parents, according to them, it said that Lord Sandy returned to England after governing in India, and he missed his favorite sauce there. So he commissioned some drugstore owners, John Lee and William Perrins, to recreate his sauce, or his favorite sauce. And they did that. And they were going to also sell it in their drugstore, but they could not, they couldn't keep it in their shop because of the smell. So yeah, it had fish, had anchovies in it. So what they did is just store it in the cellar, and they forgot about it for a couple of years, and they discovered it again when they were cleaning out the cellar. So by then it had fermented and into a tasty sauce, and they liked it. People liked it. It became a really popular sauce. They convinced stewards on the passenger ships to serve it or have it on their tables in the dining area. And they packaged it like in glass bottles, and then they were wrapped in brown paper to prevent them from breaking on the voyage. And so they're still packaged like that, the Lee and Perrins Worcestershire sauce. But they lost the trademark for that name in 1876. So now it can be used for any similar sauce. And really nobody knows what exactly was in the original recipe, but it had things like tamarind, did have anchovies, molasses, sugar, salt, onions, garlic, different spices. And something interesting that I found out, and I believe it's still true today, the ones that they make for America have a whole lot more salt and sugar in them than the ones that are they make for Europe. So the beauty of making your own is you can make it as sweet or tart as you like. And then there are recipes for the sauce you can find, but they usually involve like cooking all the ingredients together, for like simmering them for about 5 hours. But what I've done is just put together a really quick, tasty sauce that still gives you the sweet, tangy, savory, salty flavor, but less work. And you can go and buy vegan Worcestershire sauce, but every one that I've seen has had sugar in it. So that's why I wanted to make my own, because a lot of the recipes that we use call for something for the Worcestershire sauce. And this gives you the exact flavors and not so much work. The most work on the sauce, you can buy tamarind paste. This is what the base of the sauce is. So what I use is this block and make my own tamarind paste. And that is easy to do, but it's the most time-consuming part of this whole thing. So if you buy it, even quicker. But this, I just took some of it and put hot water over it, broke it up, and then let it sit for about 30 minutes. And then I just kind of massaged it with my hands and into a paste. The water and this tamarind. This is the pulp from the pod. It's a tropical tree, and it's tart, tangy, but the riper it gets, the sweeter it gets. But it's always tart. Just has a little more hint of sweetness if you get the really, really ripe ones. So I don't know, you can see the pod. You've probably seen them in the stores. But I've made my tamarind paste, and I'm just going to lower the screen for a second. And just show you what's in this. So I have some mustard, some apple cider vinegar, and I'm not using, like the original one had malt vinegar, and apple cider vinegar is a little healthier, gluten-free. I have my tamarind paste. I'm going to put 1 date in because, I mean, I don't want it really, really sweet, and the tamarind paste is a little bit sweet. I have wheat-free tamari, give it a little bit of saltiness. And then we have cloves, onion powder, garlic granules, ground ginger, cinnamon, and a little bit of cayenne. And that's it. So we're not adding any fat to this. It's going to be full of flavor. Let's see, you can see my blender. I'm just going to add everything into the blender. Oh yeah, and a little bit of water. So let's see, the first thing is 6 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. And in the instructions or the directions, it says to blend all ingredients until combined, and then pour it through a strainer into a cup. But if you make your own paste, you really don't even have to pour it through a strainer into a cup. This is just if you happen to buy something that has a lot of the fiber. It's real fibrous. But I just strained it through here into a pan, and you don't have to heat it if you're going to use it right away, or if you're going to use it within the next, say, few weeks. It's fine if you don't heat it, but it will stay longer in your refrigerator because, like, if any bacteria, I've washed my hands, but if anything was on my nails or anything, if you heat it, kills all the bacteria and it stays longer. So I'm just going to add the vinegar and there we go. Let's see. And then a couple tablespoons of the wheat-free tamari. So the tamarind is actually really good for you besides being tasty. I could eat the whole jar of tamarind paste that I made. But it is antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, and anti-parasitic. All right, I'm going to put in my 1 date. And this is an organic date, so when you pit, you want to make sure you get the pit out and just check it for any critters. All right, ready? And then I'm going to put my tamarind paste. Okay. So the beauty of making your own is you can put more or less of anything that you like. This is just one way to do it. A little bit left for me. And then I'm going to put some mustard. You can use any kind of mustard. It's about 2 teaspoons. Give it a little zip. And then we have all our spices. All right, onion powder. And you can double this if you want to make a lot and keep it. I usually just put it in, it's a bottle that I saved, washed out from something else, and just use a funnel and put it in the bottle. If you want, you can put it in a mason jar and make a whole lot. I'm just making a little right now. I'm going to put it in this cute little jar. All right, so I'm going to put my onion powder. Garlic granules. And you could use fresh garlic. The granules are not such a bite when I'm not cooking it. It's not so strong. And ground ginger. All these yummy spices are actually good for you and add a whole lot of flavor to whatever you're making. Cinnamon. Right. Eighth of a teaspoon. And then cayenne. I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit because I don't want it really hot. And then different batches of cayenne are different heats. Okay. And ground cloves, a pinch. Okay. A smidgen, a pinch, and a dash. A dash is about 1/8 of a teaspoon. A pinch is about 1/16 of a teaspoon. And that is it, besides the water to help. Give it a little bit of water. And I'm going to blend it until it's smooth. I'm going to mute myself while I do that. All right, and that's all there is to it. Get it all down. And then, as I said, if you want it in a bottle, you can use a funnel and pour it into your bottle. I'm just going to put it in my little mason jar. And I have it. For use in any recipes, you can use it, like brush it on your vegetables as you roast them or bake them, grill them, stir. You can put it in a stir fry, use it as a sauce on pasta, on rice, on any kind of dish. You can use it on a sandwich as a condiment, seasoning in a dressing, season your soups, just anything you want, like a nice kick. Like there's a really good recipe with PCRM, zippy yams. It's sweet potatoes and collard greens calls for this, and I just used it in some black bean burgers last week. So the possibilities are endless, and just try it. Hope you like it, and thanks for watching today. And now I'm going to hand it over to Carolyn Strickland in Montgomery, Alabama.
Hi, Karen. That looks really good. I've been wondering where I was going to find Worcestershire, however you say that name. But yeah, our only Whole Foods just closed, and I've bought store-bought vegan Worcestershire before, but so that's great. I'm thrilled to have a recipe. We always learn so much from each other, don't we? It's awesome. Welcome to Montgomery, Alabama. I'm Carolyn Strickland, and I am going to make a roasted red pepper sauce, and we've had a lot of red peppers today in a lot of our recipes. So I'm going to show you how versatile this recipe is, and you don't even need the red peppers. So I guess that would be some other kind of sauce without the red peppers. It's not roasted red pepper sauce. It's just a sauce. But we'll get to that first, and you can see how versatile this recipe is. So I came up with this recipe because I really like tomato sauces on pastas and on my pizza, but my husband does not eat a lot of tomatoes because he has reflux. And so if you're one of those people with reflux, then you probably need to limit the tomatoes in your diet, maybe the onions, maybe the chocolate, unfortunately. So I came up with this because I really still wanted to have something on pizza and on pasta that tasted really good with pizza and pasta, but didn't have tomatoes. So let's get started. So it starts with just a half a cup of cashews. And I know we've had some recipes before mine. I think Ella had cashews. She had a lot more cashews in hers. This is just a half a cup. I've already soaked them. So when you see a recipe that says to soak your cashews overnight, if you forget to soak your cashews, no problem. Just boil them for about 10 minutes and drain the water off. And it does the exact same thing as soaking them overnight. So I boiled these for about 10 minutes. If you have a high-speed blender, like a Blendtec or a Vitamix, then you don't have to do that. But I just find it makes it creamier to go ahead and soak or boil your cashews. If you are allergic to tree nuts, you could try sunflower seeds. You could also try replacing this with some white beans, like cannellini beans, and that would work pretty well too, I think. All right, so we're going to start with our half a cup of already cooked and soaked or soaked cashews, and then 3/4 of a cup of vegetable broth, which is low sodium. Now, you have a few different options here. So you could make your own homemade vegetable broth. That's fine, low sodium. Or you could use something like Better Than Bouillon. And this is when you see the little V in the heart on anything, then that's a symbol that lets you know it is vegan. So there are no animal products involved in this. So to make this lower sodium, just use half of what is called for. So the typical recipe of using the Better Than Bouillon is 1 teaspoon to 1 whole cup of boiling water. But if you just use half of that, then you've cut the sodium in half as well. Or like I said, you could use your own homemade vegetable broth, vegetable stock, and it could be low sodium. That's up to you. 1 clove of garlic peeled, and this is a really big clove of garlic, and 1 tablespoon, half a tablespoon to 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. I really like the lemon in it, so I go with a tablespoon or so. Could be fresh squeezed. If you're in a pinch and you want to do this really quickly, it could be just a store-bought jar of lemon juice. That's fine too. And nutritional yeast, 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, which it gives that really nice umami flavor. If you're new around here, then you might not know what nutritional yeast is. So nutritional yeast can be purchased in containers like this. Nutritional yeast flakes are not baker's yeast. They are not brewer's yeast, so you can't bake with it. It won't make anything rise, but it will make it taste kind of cheesy. So you could buy it like this, or I buy it in bulk at the health food store in town and just store it in one of these glass containers. And so that's all for the basic recipe. And I have not added roasted red peppers yet, and I'll show you why. So we're going to go ahead and whirl this up just like this. So you can just stop right here with it if you want to. And if you do not want the roasted red peppers, you don't have any roasted red peppers, but you want a white creamy sauce, then this is a great sauce to use in place of something that when I was little, my mother would make casseroles and dishes with what she called white sauce. And I think that a traditional white sauce, if you look in an old Betty Crocker cookbook, I'm pretty sure a traditional white sauce is basically just butter melted and flour and milk. And so when I was little, we had casseroles and things that had a traditional white sauce. So this could be your white sauce, and use it in casseroles, that kind of thing. It's very, very savory and delicious, just like this. And you could leave it just like this and use it on a lot of different things. Anything that you would use a traditional white sauce for, like in a casserole. If you wanted a little thicker, then just put less vegetable broth, or maybe a few more cashews, or add a few spoonfuls of white beans. And it's a nice, thick, creamy white sauce. So to make it into the roasted red pepper sauce, all I'm doing is adding a half a cup of roasted red pepper pieces. And you can roast your own red peppers like Dilip showed earlier. Absolutely, you can roast your own red peppers. If, however, you don't have access to fresh red peppers, then you could also buy it in like a big jar of organic roasted red pepper. And these are fire roasted red pepper strips from Costco. And so if you want to make a lot of things with roasted red peppers, I mean, I just bought this at Costco. It's much faster and easier that way. Still tastes really good, especially if you're whirling it up in a sauce. So we'll add that, and then the sauce will turn kind of orangey pink. All right. So here's the fun part, and this is why this recipe is so versatile. You could use it just like this. Or if you would like to amp up the flavor for different flavor profiles, this is where you can change what you're using it with. So you could use it just like this in a lasagna, or maybe drizzle it over a Buddha bowl or a grain bowl with roasted vegetables and beans and maybe some greens, and just drizzle it just like this. Wonderful. Or we use it on pizza a lot. And so what I will do is add some just Italian seasoning, maybe a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. And if you want to put it on pizza, maybe add a half a teaspoon of fennel seed. And that gives it a really nice pizza kind of flavor. But if you would like to make it maybe Tex-Mex, to use drizzled over roasted sweet potatoes and black beans, and make it a Tex-Mex flavor and serve it with tortillas, then we have roasted cumin, chili powder, and some smoked paprika. So that combination would be really good with a Tex-Mex dish. And then maybe also some chipotle powder. That would be great. If you want to make it maybe Cajun flavored, then add some Cajun seasoning. That would be good too. Maybe a half a teaspoon to a whole teaspoon. Also, maybe you want to go with like an Indian flavor. So you could do some shawarma seasoning, some sweet curry powder, half a teaspoon of each. That would be really good. Or a whole teaspoon of just one of them. If you want to do maybe a North African kind of flair to it, you could add Burberry powder, or I'm not sure how to say it, ras el hanout, or maybe some harissa. I mean, there's just so many different ways you can use this sauce. So Italian, Tex-Mex, Indian, Cajun. I mean, there's, you know, your preference. So if you're trying to put it over with tacos or something like that, it would be really good as with the Tex-Mex ingredients. It's great like this, but there's so many different ways you can add different seasonings to change it up for whatever cuisine you're trying to make. And like I said, if you have somebody in your family with reflux and they can't eat a lot of tomatoes, this makes a great replacement for tomato sauce over pasta. We use it on pizza. We use it on baked potatoes stuffed with roasted vegetables. We use it on grain bowls, drizzled over a grain bowl with roasted vegetables and beans. It's just good on so many things. So I make it a lot, obviously. And it's one of our very favorite sauces, very versatile. So if you have any questions about it, or if you come up with maybe a different cuisine and flavor profile to try with it, then let me know in the comments. I would love to know if you can think of another way to use it. So what would be your favorite way? Let me know. And now I'm going to send you over to Angelita and in Greenville. And you're making a dessert sauce, I think, right?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Yay, that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm so excited about what you just made. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm trying so many applications. So thank you for sharing that. Hi, my name is Angelita Alvarez Hughes. I'm in Greenville, South Carolina. The name of my company is Earth Seasoned Water. Earth Seasoned Water, and my website is www.earthseasonedwater.com. Today I'm going to be making a sweet cashew sauce. So this is, keep in mind, it's a sauce and not a dip. So if you want to make a dip, I would use half the amount of a plant-based milk. So the recipe does call for salt, just a little bit of salt. It's optional. But I found this salt substitute. So it's black. And what it is, it's black limes or lemons. So they just take the lemons and they let them dry. And that's all these. I bought these at the Indian market. I put these between a kitchen towel and with my old meat cleaver. I kind of just used the side of it and used it to break these. And then I put them in my coffee/spice grinder until I created a powder. So I'm using this in it because it does give it a little bit of a lime flavor to it. If you're salt free, you know, feel free to try this. I think you'll really like it. And then this recipe also calls for maple syrup, but you can use date syrup. You're going to exchange it for the same quantities. This I bought at Costco. You can also use agave syrup, or you can use sweet potato nectar, whichever one it is that you want to use. All right, so several other chefs have talked about cashews, and same thing. I soaked mine overnight, then I take them out and I rinse them really well. These are organic raw. But when I'm in a pinch and I didn't soak them overnight, what I do is I just boil them in water for 10, 15 minutes, 20 at the most, rinse them in cold water to stop the cooking process, and then I go ahead and use them. So I am using my husband's smoothie maker for this. If you have a high-powered blender, you really don't have to soak them, but this is not really high-powered. So we're going to add to this, I am using oat milk. So I've got 1 cup of oat milk to it. I am using the maple syrup, so I've got 3 tablespoons here. And like I said, you can change this out to whatever sweetener you want to use. We've got some vanilla, and it's 1 teaspoon. But if you want to change, and it does seem like a lot, but if you want to change the flavor of this, you don't have to use the vanilla. You can use almond, you can use lemon, and there's also a coffee. So you can switch that up. What I'm giving you as a recipe is just a base, so feel free to play with it and make it your own. Right, so, and then we've got the salt. Again, I'm going to use the black lime. And this is really, really easy. You just mix everything up, put it in here. And I know I'm gonna make some noise, sorry. All right, let's see how this turns out. All right, perfect. Now, if you want one that's really, really smooth sauce, then I would use a sieve and drain this through. But I like mine with a little bit of texture to it. And there we go. It's hold on, let me grab a spoon here. So you can see that it is a little bit thick, but it is not a dip. And like I said, if you want it for a dip, then I would use half of the liquid. And all you do is just spoon this over some fresh fruit or some whole food, plant-based waffles, rice pudding. There's just so many applications that you can use this in. You can also spoon it over baked sweet potato. So there you go. I know my recipe is really easy, but it's absolutely delicious. So thank you so much for being with us today. We truly appreciate you guys taking time out of your Saturday to spend it with us, and we really, really love sharing these recipes with you. So now I'm going to pass it back over to Dilla, and we're going to do Q&A, and don't forget to type in your questions because we have some wonderful giveaways. Again, thank you so much, and you guys have a wonderful Saturday. I wish you guys much happiness and plenty of health.
Thanks, Angelita. Another excellent recipe. I admire your versatility. You make so many cool dishes in that kitchen of yours. So let me bring everybody back in. That was a great show. There's Angelita, and there's Carolyn, who just answered a very nice question about bell peppers. There's Karen, and Cody, and Mark. So welcome back, everybody. And Karen, are you going to take names of folks, and then from this point on, when questions come in from the audience, we're going to add your name and draw 2 of them for our wonderful prizes. And before we start, I thought I'd take a moment to talk about the prizes. There's so many cool magazines out there, and one of my favorites is by a group called Vegetarian Resource Group. I've been getting their magazine for 20 or 25 years, maybe even more. It's nice, it's plain, it's to the point, it's plain in a good way. It's full of, great information you can use in the kitchen and your lifestyle. It's not preachy in the least. It appeals to many audiences. So they have a magazine called Vegan Journal, which I think comes out 5 or 6 times a year. And so we're giving away a 1-year subscription to Vegan Journal. And then I love hot sauces, and it almost surprised me that none of us did make a hot sauce. And so there's a great brand. Karen, remind me of the brand name. I'm blanking on it. Greenbird or Yellowbird. Yellowbird. Yellowbird makes all these wonderful sauces. I don't like a lot of heat, and I've always wanted to try ghost pepper. They actually make a ghost pepper sauce, but it has other things like dates. So you can just put a few drops and get the flavor, and I love the ghost pepper sauce. I use their habanero sauce a lot, and I use the green sauce as well. I use all of them. They're good. So we're giving away a 5-pack of the hot sauces. So start your questions, please. And while we're waiting for questions to come in, I have a few of my own. So Mark, I wanted you to talk about your remoulade a little bit. One of the ingredients in your remoulade was mayonnaise. And some of us, before we were plant-based, would eat mayonnaise. I never really did. I didn't like it. But in Food for Life, we have a wonderful mayonnaise recipe in the diabetes class, a plant-based mayonnaise recipe. And I wanted you to take a moment to talk a little bit more about mayonnaise, vegan mayonnaise. And then for those of us who want to purchase it, can you talk about some of the commercial vegan mayonnaises, what they're like, and what the advantages are of buying pre-made mayonnaise, please?
Yeah, so the pre-made vegan mayonnaise, the advantage is you don't have to do anything but go to the store, purchase it, bring it home, and open the jar. So that's the good news. The bad news is vast majority of them, I haven't really looked for those in a long time, but the last time I did, they all have some type of oil in them. They won't have eggs, but they'll still have oil in those. And so that's why I make my own. Really, really simple. Like I said in my portion of the show today, it's really, really super easy. Take silken tofu, tablespoon of red wine vinegar, garlic powder, onion powder, a little bit of salt and pepper, whip it up in a blender or a food processor, and you've got vegan mayonnaise. You know exactly what's in it. So the other thing is, I just want to mention is related. Somebody had asked, a couple of people had asked questions about oil and, why not to use oil? Well, we know that oil has 9 calories per gram, and carbohydrates, which is everything else on our PowerPoint, has 4 calories per gram. So that's one thing. If you're trying to lose weight or keep your weight down, remove the oil. But the other issue is that oil has so many other negative effects on the body, and there's actually posted in the chat a podcast that the Examiner podcast where Dr. Neil Barnard talks extensively about the deleterious effects of oil on one's body. One of the primary areas that it impacts fat intake in our body, particularly, which oil is a fat, impacts is diabetes. We know that type 2 diabetes, by and large, is caused by increase in intracellular lipids, which is basically the fat that clogs our little cells and reduces our ability of our body to use insulin. So, there's lots and lots of evidence out there that by going whole food plant-based no oil, you can actually reverse the type 2 diabetes. So there's tons and tons of reasons why to eliminate or limit the amount of fat and oil in your in your diet, and diabetes is one of them. Of course, then we talk about heart disease and the impact. Number one killer, even bigger killer than COVID, has been heart disease every year, right? So in the last 2 years that COVID's been around, we've lost probably about 1.3 million people to heart disease and about 1 million people to COVID specifically. So anyways, I can go on and on and on, but bottom line, don't use mayonnaise with oil. Don't buy stuff over the shelf unless you could find. I don't know. There might be a no oil mayonnaise out there now with no eggs. I don't know, but I don't even bother. I can make my own.
I think there's a good trade-off in terms of adding things like sauces. So sauces should get married with your ingredients, but then we want to make sure that the sauces don't add unhealthiness. So for example, I grew up not having salad dressing, And when I guess went to college, when I'd go out with friends in high school, I was kind of surprised they'd be this French dressing and Italian dressing, and I wasn't used to it, and it's just so much fat. So sometimes we can take a good thing like a salad and make it much less healthy. A lot of good questions coming in here. And by the way, Mark, one more thing, because I want Cody to answer one question, but can you take a quick moment and talk about your veg journeys and jaunts?
Oh yeah, so thanks, appreciate that. So I'm partnered with my partner Kim Giavaco, Veg Jaunts and Journeys. We do no-oil whole food plant-based tours. So we just finished one in Charleston. We have one coming up in a couple of weeks in Asheville, and we have another one coming up in September in Maine, and then we have 4 planned for next year. So what we do is, I'm the chef, my wife's my sous chef, and we go to beautiful places. People experience all the lovely places, and then they come back to eat. I cook breakfast, lunch, dinner, or snack. People have lunches they take with them when they go visit the various places in Charleston or in Asheville or in Maine or we're going to do the Balloon Festival in the year from October. So just a really great kind of come on a tour. You're with like-minded people. I do some cooking education, as well as, cook along with me during the tour, and just a lot of fun. So, and our tours range from about 10 people up to no more than about 15 folks. So if you go to my website, let'seatgreat.com, and go to the travel section under services, you'll see some of the upcoming trips coming. So lots of great things.
This is a great entree to something Cody alluded to. So Cody told me, watch what I'm cooking. There's a surprise ingredient. She uses the same miso, and I have some questions in a minute for you on miso, but I use that same miso brand, and it uses wonderful water from Asheville. So Asheville's a great place. It's in North Carolina. Growing up, I never heard of Asheville, and Mark has discovered it, and Cody and Carolyn and I have something really cool to share. And Asheville kind of is the lead into it. So maybe Cody can start and talk a little bit about something not that different from what Mark's doing. So Cody, you started. So we haven't formally announced this yet, and we will hopefully within a week or so. And before you say that, Cody, I wanted to mention I'm on the board of a group called Rochester Lifestyle Medicine, which is a wonderful group in New York State. And so with that, Cody, why don't you say a little bit more? And then Carolyn will say a little bit more as well.
Yeah, sure. And congrats to you, Mark, for all your journeys. I think that sounds like an incredible experience for someone to join you. So yeah, Dilip and Carolyn and I have a big announcement. We are actually partnering up with the Rochester Institute of Lifestyle Medicine, and we are going to be doing plant-based immersions. So Dilip and I are going to do one in Asheville, North Carolina, coming up the end of the summer, and then Carolyn, I'll let you talk about yours. But so we're really excited. It's gonna be like a weekend immersion. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So some activities as well, and a lot of cooking and education going on too. So I'm excited about it.
Carolyn?
Yeah. So, and then in September, Dilip and I are teaming up in Oak Island on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and getting a big beach house, room for lots of people. And we'll be doing all kinds of nice, yummy, whole food, plant-based cooking, plus other activities, walking on the beach, maybe a little yoga and meditation, things like that, at a beautiful beach house. But it's an immersion weekend. And yeah, you come immerse yourself in plant-based cooking and get all your questions answered right there while we cook in front of you, and maybe involve you in a little bit of it too. So
yeah, we're really excited because it's through Rochester Lifestyle Medicine. We're not sure, but you'll be able to pay for it through healthcare reimbursement credit card. We're thinking, and down the road it might be insurance reimbursable. And anybody who knows me knows I'm not a morning person, but Cody and Carolyn are, and so we'll have to figure out how early our people want to start. If it's like 4 a.m., then I'll do that. But if it's much later than 4, Cody and Carolyn will pick up. I could do 5 even, and then I'll show up at like 9, which is early for me. And each meal will make. No, we're not doctors, Geetha, but Rochester Lifestyle Medicine is run by a doctor. And so starting with breakfast, we'll cook and we'll talk about nutrition. Then we'll have some guest lectures coming in on Zoom. We'll have lots of materials to take home. We'll have appliances to demonstrate how do you set things up in a Vitamix. We're going to make soy milk, show you how a soy milk maker works. And we're going to have some of the appliances people can take home. We'll have them offered for a discount. And then there'll be a break in the middle of the day to do some physical activity. And then people who want to stay up a little later, I'll stay up, we'll have snacks, and then we do it all over. We're thinking of doing blood work, getting connected with plant-based telehealth, and all sorts of stuff. So we're working out all the details, but watch the space. We'll post more here. But let's get back to our show. So if you're interested, we'll post details about that. So question for you, Angelita, is there so many things I could ask. Your recipes are always so intriguing. You asked, you were talking about sweeteners and extracts. And so extract is a really interesting topic. I use extracts a little bit, probably not as much as you do. Can you take a moment to talk a little bit about extracts, what extracts you like to use, what they are, and what the benefit is of extracts?
Well, extract is just a concentrated flavor of different fruits, sometimes herbs and spices. I mean, there's so many out there. I make a lot of my own, but I didn't. But right now they're in the curing stage. But there's almond, there's lemon, there's orange, there's rose. I mean, this depends on how you're wanting to use them. I find a lot of different extracts, like in the Asian market, and also in the Indian market. I've fallen in love with going to the Indian market because they have so many spices there. So I use the coffee one in the cashew sauce, and then I put that over my rice pudding, and it's really, really good. And then I also put it over my Mexican pudding, which is capirotada, which is a bread pudding. So, I mean, there's just so many different ways. So many different ways.
Extracts are great. So, Karen, please start taking names. So here's the first one. So Bonnie and by the way, Carolyn, you got a nice compliment on those sunflowers. So if you want, you can move them in front of you because we can't see them anymore.
Beautiful sunflowers. Yeah.
So Bonnie had this question. So Karen, you're taking names, right? So Bonnie McFall. And by the way, stick around. So in a few minutes, we'll draw names. So Bonnie is one of the names. Do any of you have a good Chipotle ranch dressing? I use it on everything, but it comes from the store, so not good. So could we adapt? So anybody want to take that one? Chipotle ranch dressing?
Yeah, this is Mark. So I actually, Chipotle ranch dressing is like super easy. So I do have a ranch recipe, and actually you can easily just add some Chipotle seasoning to it or some Chipotle peppers. So let me do this. What I could do is I could post it up here, probably back on our page, on our Cooks, So Many Cooks in the Kitchen page. Happy to share that. In fact, I used that on my last tour to Charleston.
Question came in from Krista. Has Angelita made her sauce? And Angelita, your audio is not very good, so see if you can be a little closer to the speaker, and I can also repeat your answer. I put my headset on, so I might be able to hear it a little bit better. Has Angelita made her sauce with cocoa powder to make it chocolate? If so, how much would you add?
I have. Actually, I made a Mexican hot chocolate sauce with it. So I use the cacao powder, not the cocoa powder. I use 1 tablespoon of the cacao powder, and then I use the coffee extract to it, and then I added 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and then just a pinch of chipotle powder.
Yeah, cocoa, you don't need much. It's a strong flavor. Okay, and then there was a question from Millie. Good to see you, Millie. And in the mushroom gravy sauce, and who did the mushroom gravy sauce? That was Nancy, who's not with us now.
Nancy, yeah.
Yeah, can I substitute liquid amino? Yeah, and I'm glad Millie asked that. So I'll share something. Anybody else who wants to do that too. I had meant to make this comment. So I taught a Food for Life class. We're all Food for Life instructors. I taught a PCRM Food for Life class yesterday, and we were talking about that. So soy sauce is a common ingredient a lot of people use. But it's alarming. We didn't spend any time today really talking about sodium. It's alarming how much sodium is in soy sauce. And most of us probably want to be careful with how much sodium we add. Quick story is, for several years before I was married, I actually stopped using salt entirely. And then I realized that salt actually brings out the flavor in certain things. And so I do use salt now, but I use a very little amount. The problem generally, and of course, talk to your healthcare provider for their advice, but for many people, the problem isn't adding salt with the cooking or at the table. It's the processed foods. And if you move towards not having processed foods or having minimal processed foods, generally it's not as big an issue. Obviously, you want to talk to your healthcare provider, make sure that you eat the things that are appropriate for you. But getting back to soy sauce, it's a nice flavor. It kicks up flavors and all, but it's just, what is it, like 480 milligrams per tablespoon or some crazy amount. And so if you do like soy sauce, the first step to consider is, well, two steps. One is to dilute it. So mix some water in, so you get half of that much. They also have reduced sodium soy and tamari sauces. Those might be good choices. But what my preferred sauce is actually called coconut aminos. And Karen probably knows more about this than I do, but I think they're made simply by fermenting coconut and coconut rind, I think, the shell. And it looks just like soy sauce. The cool thing, and I don't know how they do it, it tastes just like soy sauce. It tastes full sodium, but the sodium level is quite low compared to soy sauce. And so the question about soy sauce is, yeah, if you want to reduce your sodium, either don't use soy sauce or use something like coconut aminos. The disadvantage of coconut aminos is the price. Diane had a question regarding extracts for uncooked sauces, and maybe preferable to make sure the extract lacks alcohol. Okay, and Diane, that's a good comment. But if you change it into a question, you'll be in the drawing for our gifts. And then here, James, I used a low sodium soy sauce. Yep. Linda had a question. Let's make sure we add Linda's name to the drawing. Can you make a vegan mayo with something other than tofu? Yes, you can use cashews. You can use cashews and vinegar. Anybody else? I've only done it a few times. I'm no expert at mayonnaise. Anybody else want to say something more about mayonnaise?
You know, I've used white beans. You do get a beany taste to it, but yeah, cashews would probably be the best alternative.
Sherry Sargent, and welcome. I get the sense from your questions this might be your first time with us, and we're really glad because you found us, and so I'm so glad you found us, and hopefully you'll be a regular, Sherry. And thanks for all your questions throughout the show. Does anyone have a really good hazelnut sauce or creamer recipe for my morning coffee? So I'll let somebody else answer that, but I will say this, that I buy, and I want to show you guys something. I have it in my refrigerator. I don't drink a lot of hot drinks. I do some virtual teaching of math, second grade math, and so I have a cup here when I'm teaching these cute little children, and so I use a little bit of creamer, and I use this vegan creamer, and one of the flavors is hazelnut, but I've not made it. Does anybody else want to take that? Do you know how to make a hazelnut sauce or creamer for hot drinks?
I have not tried hazelnut milk, but there's an oat milk that you can buy that we had in one of our classes. My classes had somebody who just could not give up the milk and the tea, and we found it's called Malk, M-A-L-K, and that does dissolve in. It's an oat milk, but it's just oat water, filtered water, and a little pinch of salt, and that does dissolve in hot liquids. Like some of the other milks that you buy with gums and stuff in it, just kind of curdle in there. This is really clean.
Bonnie had another good question. As a Food for Life instructor, what would you suggest to someone who might be interested in a career like this? Any certifications needed, or do you need a 4-year degree? I want to become involved in something. I'm 62 and an old nurse, looking for something different. We'll let Cody give a little bit more about this, but I just wanted to throw out there that this is not necessarily a career for some of us. Melissa, who's not on Q&A, I think she does this as her primary source of income. Most of us, this is one thing we do to make a little bit of money. It's not our real career. But before Cody goes and gives more details, because Cody is a nurse and she teaches nurses at the college level, and maybe she'll talk about Nurses Nutrition Network as well. But I did want to say that PCRM has announced the next round of applications for Food for Life instructors. You have to submit, and it's a pretty rigorous process. You have to be vegan. You have to show that you know how to cook. You have to submit videos of your having cooked and letters of reference and a bunch of that. And then you're interviewed and so forth. And I always feel so lucky that they chose me. I'm glad they did, because I get to meet wonderful people like Angelita and Cody and Karen and Carolyn and Mark. But Cody, why don't you talk a little bit more about Bonnie's question?
Sure. So it's great to have a nurse on here join us today. So welcome, Bonnie. And if you are serious about wanting to be a Food for Life instructor and apply, I'd be glad to speak with you personally about it sometime. But what I do with it is, I'm a nursing instructor part-time, and I actually teach my nursing students the Food for Life program, and they absolutely love it. And it's a great way to teach these young nurses to, promote health through nutrition for themselves and their patients. And so it's getting a lot of support right now in Omaha, Nebraska. I don't know where you're located at, but, we need Food for Life instructors. So we'd love to have you, and I'd love to talk to you more about it. So just let me know.
And if you want to reach any of us, the easiest way to reach us is take our first name, and you see our first names here, but all lowercase, at SoManyCooks.com. So if you want to reach, I agree, Jeannie. Jeannie's comment is, Cody is amazing. Here we go. She is. I don't know how lucky I am to get to work with her. She is amazing. But if you want to reach Cody, for example, it's Cody at SoManyCooks.com, all lowercase. If you want to reach Mark, it's Mark at SoManyCooks.com. Of course, Mark has his own, but this redirects to him. So you can reach any of us. So if you want to take her up on the discussion on nurses, then she's awesome, and she'll be glad to answer more questions about that. So Sherry, I'm new here. Okay, great. Wonderful. Yeah, we don't like the standard American diet. So Sherry, I hope you're going to become a regular. We'd love to see you again. Our next show is just a few weeks away, and we'll talk about that in a little while. Millie asked a question regarding the salt issue. Thank you for the black wine, black dried lemons. I love black dried lemons too. And I think, I can't remember where, Angelita, you got them. I get dried lemons from Middle Eastern stores. Yeah, they're really good. They're just called dried lemons, and they're really good. Okay, let's see what the next question is. So James had a comment. My supervisor spells her name that way too. I'm not sure which spelling you were referring to, but let's see. Here's a question from Eileen. Hello, Eileen. I always love your smiley face, smiling face. Is there a sauce with a butter flavor for corn on the cob or baked potato? Let me make a quick comment, and maybe somebody has a better answer than I would. So as vegans, we don't eat butter, but if you're looking for an occasional spread, I love Mayoko's butter. Mayoko makes vegan cheeses and butters. I've heard that through what's it called? They have this, where they introduce new products. She's introduced a cottage cheese, which is going to be released next year. It's going to be available. I remember when I was a little kid, my mom used to give me cottage cheese with pineapple, and I loved it. And so we're not encouraging these kinds of foods, but for occasional use, we're whole food, plant-based, we're vegan, and we encourage a limited amount of fat, 10% fat. And if it turns out that this new cottage cheese is something that, delights your palate, and you eat it once in a while, just make your overall average be 10%. And so for the butter flavor on corn on the cob, you could put a little bit of Mayoko's butter. You could use something like Earth Balance, which is a margarine, and there's many kinds of vegan margarines. But you could also make a sauce out of nutritional yeast and use that on the corn. But would anybody else like to share something about a sauce with a butter flavor?
You could use John's cauliflower sauce, or I've done it with just steamed cauliflower. Don't add any liquid to it. Blend it up, and I put a little bit of salt and dill. Dill to me gives that little buttery flavor. Some people put a little psyllium in there to kind of keep it up.
So Cody, Bonnie said she's in Bowie, Maryland. That's my old stomping grounds. I went to college. I went to Johns Hopkins just down the street from Bowie. So she's from Bowie. And I would encourage you and everybody to check out ICNM, International Conference on Nutrition and Medicine. It's a wonderful conference. I was telling my students yesterday about it. It's in DC. I know Mark's going, Cody's going. I don't know if Carolyn's not going. I don't know if Angelita or Karen are going. My next math semester starts the very next day, so I'm on the fence. I haven't decided yet. And that's just down the street from you. So if you wanted to go, Bonnie, you could. And if you go, you'll have a special treat because Cody and Tammy Robertson, another cook in the kitchen, they co-lead Nurses Nutrition Network, and they have wonderful programs every other month, totally for free, which I encourage you to check out. But then they're doing a live NNN at the conference. So nurses get extra special treatment because they deserve extra special treatment. They're the best. So, yeah, and there was an interesting question. So Krista, let's add Krista's name. So we haven't really talked about this, and I'm so glad you've asked about this. In fact, some of the other cooks probably don't know about this. I used to watch your videos on the Plant-Based Network, run by a gentleman named Ron Gandiza. I can't get their app to work anymore. Do you know what happened? We kind of know, we kind of don't know. So Plant-Based Network is retooling, and they started putting our shows out there, and then they stopped, and then they had some technical issues, and so we don't really understand what's going on. So at the moment, we're not on Plant-Based Network. And if they retool and can pick up again, we will, and we'll quickly get a lot of our old shows out there. So good question, Krista. We don't know, but our shows. That's why I no longer say that they'll eventually put on Plant-Based Network. Mark wanted to say something.
So yeah, I have kind of heard that they're out of business, so we don't know the full details of that. To Bill's point, but the more important thing is you could watch this show. It'll be posted up probably by tomorrow, and all our past shows on SoManyCooks.com/shows, and they're all up there. So don't need to be going to anywhere but the website. So if you don't do Facebook or whatever, I know a lot of people are watching us on YouTube. Go to SoManyCooks.com/shows, and you're going to get all the shows there.
And it's thanks to Mark. Mark does the web work, and hats off to you, Mark. That's great.
Yep, and Susanna also. She's working on it with us also. So thank you. Yep.
Oh, good. I'm glad you found out about us through Plant-Based Network. So it was, and hopefully will continue to be a great resource. So that's great. Here's a question from, and one more comment I wanted to throw out there is we are connected to some resources that help with if you are a vegan organization or you're doing vegan things and you need help with web-based stuff and you want some help, feel free to drop me a note. I might be able to help you. Dilip@SoManyCooks.com. We have some resources that we can help with. This question came in, and that was from Ronnie. Good to see you, Ronnie. Hope your grandkids are doing well. Please encourage them to watch our next So Many Kids show. Maybe in a few minutes, Cody can talk about the kids show. She could bring maybe one of her kids on to talk about, maybe I can bring my kid too. Ronnie asks, can you use a different flour in the mushroom gravy like chickpea or tapioca instead of whole wheat? Okay. So the mushroom gravy was made
real quick.
Yeah,
hey,
Mark.
So I use that. I also did that in my Charleston. I use pretty much solely spelt as an all-purpose flour these days, just because I like whole grain spelt. So spelt, yeah. I would try with chickpea, experiment. That's the beautiful thing. And Dilip's really always good about saying this is that, recipes are guides and they got to kind of get it started. And then we play with it according to our flavors. I always change recipes. First time I'll do it according to the way it's written. And then I always mess with it based on my palate, my friends' palates, my guest palates, whatever.
Yeah, and I know with the students I have, we're all good and bad at different things. I'm bad at lots of things, right? So try to have me fix anything up around the house and I'll damage it. I don't know how to fix things. I'm really, really bad, right? But I'm pretty good at food and I'm good at combining things. And so I don't like recipes. I make my own up. But I understand a lot of people do need the guidance of recipes. And if you do everything. I had a student once who said he'd burn water if he boiled water. And so there's no source of shame. If you follow things step by step, that's cool. There's absolutely no problem, right? James, that's not a question, but if you come up with a question, you can be in the drawing. But just to prove to you that our talented Carolyn Strickland is a professional singer, I'm going to put you on the spot, Carolyn. And would you sing just for a second a little jingle from our jingle? Can you sing a little for us?
Oh, there's so many cooks in the kitchen, so many recipes to share, so many cooks in the kitchen. With ideas we're happy to share.
Bum, bum. So she's a professional singer, and she works with an amazing a professor of music who actually orchestrated it. And we need to ask him to come up with a few more variations because we have a variation for the kids, and it'd be fun to do some more variations.
No,
Question from Geeta.
He's a famous guy, too. He's pretty well known in the music world. Ron Handy.
Yeah, he works with the brothers. What's his name? I forgot their names. Famous jazz musicians.
Oh yeah, Wynton Marsalis.
And Branford Marsalis. Yeah. Right, Winford.
Yes, he works with the Marsalis family. He works with. He's amazing. But Ron is actually I think he's the great nephew or grandson or something of the father of the blues, W.C. Handy. So if you know anything about blues music, W.C. Handy. This is Ron Handy. So
Geeta asks the question: is chimichurri sauce? And let's add Geeta to the drawing. Is chimichurri sauce vegan? So who wants to answer that?
Can be.
And Lavonda, thanks for your comment. Change it into a question and you can be in the drawing.
Hey,
And that is our Geeta, that is our song for the show.
That is.
you know, hey, can I add a comment
Sure.
back to what the young lady that says she's a 62-year-old nurse that's looking for a change? So, so in my past life, I used to coach executives in healthcare, and one of the things we'd always talk about is as they move on to the end of their careers, to think about an encore career. So I took my own medicine, and this is my encore career. I worked in healthcare and leadership, and I did all kinds of different careers. So this is a really cool encore career to have. And you can make this as big or as little as you want. That's one of the beautiful things about being a Food for Life instructor. Is things grow for me, for example, it's kind of taken on a whole life of its own. So go for it. If this is something you want to do, go for it. You got one chance to go around the sun here, in life, hopefully 80 or 90 times around the sun, but go for
100.
it. Or 100. Yeah.
Or 110.
That's the new actuarial tables. Yeah, as I'm planning my retirement, I got a plan to live to 100. So you're not getting rid of me yet, Dillab. You got me for about another 40 years. So
can't wait. So James has a question, and this is really, I guess, for Cody, Carolyn, and me. Are you coming to Rochester? So we work through Rochester Lifestyle Medicine, and right now all our retreats, I think, are going to be North Carolina-based. We might do some Nebraska-based. We might do some Alabama-based. It's possible. I doubt we'll come to Rochester. So fly on down. We have really nice places. Our place in the mountains is just so luxurious. It's gorgeous, and everybody, unless you come with a friend that you want to be with, will have a private room. And Carolyn and I have an awesome place at the beach. It's right on the beach, and it has, I think, also a pool. I think both of us have hot tubs and all, so it's going to be nice. So it'd be worth your while coming down, James. We'd love to meet you. And when we post it, I'm pretty sure we're going to sell out quickly. So when we post it, we'd love our So Many Cooks in the Kitchen followers. We'd love for some of you, if you're interested in coming, for you to sign up as soon as we go live, because we'd love to meet some of you guys. And Geeta, yeah, if you listen to our songs, as soon as we're done, we'll play the trailer and you'll hear the song again. Okay. So you may have missed it at the beginning. Okay, here's a question from Lavonda. Do you have a favorite chocolate sauce? So who wants to take that one? Karen, you're adding names to the list, right?
Yeah, I didn't get that one.
Oh, sorry, that's Lavonda. I'll leave it up there. Lavonda Hawkins. So Lavonda is asking, does anybody have a favorite chocolate sauce?
So you know what my wife does not every night, but when she's got a real craving for chocolate, and she just gets some agave syrup, gets some cocoa powder, and gets the peanut butter powder that we get at Costco, mixes up that in a little cup, and kind of stirs it, and then we'll pour it on a piece of toast, or just eat it because she's got a taste for chocolate. So I don't really have a recipe, but that's what she does. And that doesn't taste bad, but if you really got a craving for chocolate, that kind of works for her.
So Krista is asking which doctor we work with. I'm friends for decades with Dr. Ted Barnett. He's the one who started Rochester Lifestyle Medicine, and he invited me to be on his board a couple of years ago, and I just love all the work he does. Dr. Veggie, he's known as. He's so friendly, so nice. So Cody, Carolyn, and I came up with this idea, and we were going to do it all ourselves. And then we were talking about, who's going to take the credit card payments, this, that, and the other thing. Do we need to establish a nonprofit? And I remember Cody and I having conversations. She was saying, "Yikes, this is really hard." And then I called Ted, and I said, "Hey, we're thinking of doing this." As soon as I gave him the idea, he said, "I'm in. I'm supporting you." So it's going to be a program under Rochester Lifestyle Medicine. So Ted Barnett is a great guy. He's it's the organization. He's not going to be involved in the program, but the Institute will have it listed. It'll be one of their programs. Infinite love and gratitude. Someone mentioned to me there are annual membership dues to maintain status as an active Food for Life instructor. Is that accurate information? Yes. And we don't speak for PCRM, so go to the website and get all the details. But we do have to pay a licensing fee. And I know this year, it changes all the time. If you teach a certain number of classes, the fee goes down. And I think under certain conditions, it becomes zero. So infinite love and gratitude. If you're in the drawing too, and if you win, then I guess we don't have to know your name, but we'll ask you to send an email with your contact. Okay, let's see. Yeah, TED is excellent, Krista. TED had me on a program for New York State on AARP, American Association for Retired People, just a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. It was really good. Yep, I know Tom Campbell. I'm good friends with his brother, Nelson. I'm good friends with his dad, Colin. So I've met Tom. I'm not friends with him. I know him. So yeah, I know him. Let's take a look. What more questions?
Philip,
Yes.
I wanted to go back to the lady that asked about favorite chocolate sauce.
Yes.
So this is something that I make. So I use the almond protein powder, just the scoop that comes with it. So I put that in a little bowl. I use 1 tablespoon of date syrup. I use 1 tablespoon of the cacao powder. Just a little, like a half a teaspoon of the coffee. And then mix it all up and I thin it out a little bit with some water. Zap it in the microwave for 30 seconds. Mix it again and it gives you this beautiful thick chocolate sauce. It's amazing.
That sounds really good. That sounds really good. I wanted to make a quick comment. So that sounds good. And if you're using things like almond protein powder in small quantities for this, that's cool. But this came up in my Food for Life class yesterday. I don't otherwise recommend protein powders. So most of us get way too much protein. And vegan or not, protein powders aren't a good idea, except for an application like this. When Angelita uses a little bit to make a sauce, that's perfectly fine. And by the way, one other comment for infinite love and gratitude is I do know, again, we don't speak for PCRM, but I do know that there's a strong interest in reaching people regardless of their financial background. So if you're hesitant to apply, go ahead and reach out, not to us, but to PCRM and say, I'm thinking of applying, but this may be a financial issue. And I think that there are scholarships even for going through the training, I think, because the training also costs something. Question from Anne, and I'm glad you asked this because I got into trouble on the AARP broadcast. I was talking about baking soda, and I use baking powder. So, and let's see if Karen is probably the best to answer this. What's a good way to remember baking soda versus baking powder? So, Karen, add Anne's name to the list, and please answer the question. What's the difference, and how do you remember it?
So baking, I make my own baking powder, which makes it easy for me to remember it because I just use baking soda in the baking powder, baking soda and cream of tartar. And one is alkaline and one is acid. And they have to combine, like when they combine with the liquid, it creates that reaction. So you want to get something in the oven while that reaction is going on. So it will help something rise. And then, so baking soda is base, so you need an acid to make that reaction happen. Versus the baking powder, you have both in that one mixture.
Sherry has a question. Do you ever cook or have classes in the West Coast? There's about 300 Food for Life instructors. We're all over the United States. We have instructors in Canada, in China, in India, in South Africa. We have in Europe, in Italy, England, Scotland, and definitely on the West Coast. We have wonderful instructors in California, Southern California, Bay Area. We have instructors in Oregon and Washington State. Check out fflclasses.org, Food for Life. Well, it's right here, fflclasses.org, right? And you can read about local, and many of us, I think Mark is one of them, does virtual classes. So if you want to take one of Mark's classes, I've done a few virtual classes, but you can take virtual or in-person classes. That's absolutely true. And you're quite welcome, Infinite Love and Gratitude. I hope we're lucky enough to have you as a fellow Food for Life instructor down the road. Question from Sherry, what's the difference between homemade stocks and broths? So quickly, I'm a lazy cook, right? We were talking about this in class yesterday too. So we made a recipe and we bought stock. And I said, a lot of you are busy and you'll just buy it. But if you want to save money, and you don't mind spending the time, all you do is you take all your refuse. I compost, but if you want, take your onion skins and the apple cores and stuff you're discarding, put it in a big pot, put 9 times as much water as stuff, right? Estimate, I like estimating. Bring it to a boil and simmer it uncovered for about 3 hours, and then decant it. Now the solids left behind can be composted or put through your grinder in your sink, and that liquid, that brown liquid, is now stock, and that's all there is to that. Diane, P is the poof, powder helps it rise, S is the spread. We should remember that. Soda spreads out the baked good. Poof for powder and S for spread. I'll try to remember that. It's really good. Let's see. We'll do the drawing soon. Let's see if there's any final questions. If I'm missing any. Oh, and I promised that I would show on camera hearts of palm. Somebody asked about it. So we have to be careful because some hearts of palm can be harvested to damage forests. And so you want to get something like, I like this brand, Native Forest. And so it's the inside part of, in this case, palms grow really quickly. And so it's a sustainably grown forest, and it's the inside. It's tender, it tastes good. It's a little bit like artichoke hearts. Somebody asked, where do you get it? It's a canned good. I've never seen it frozen. I bet it could be found frozen some places. And it's just where you'll see canned roasted peppers, canned artichoke hearts. I don't buy roasted peppers because they're cheap and easy to make. That was the question that came up earlier as well. Somebody said, James. So I don't think James has asked a question yet, has he, Karen? So turn one of these into a question and you can be eligible. Yeah, and so James makes a good point. I make my own broth, but I don't put that much water. Yeah, make it your own. So I do 1 to 9, but if you want a thicker broth, then do 1 to 7, 1 to 6, something like that. Has he asked a question, Karen? Because then we could add him to the drawing.
I did write his name down, but I
I
wrote
he
his name down before you said.
Let's assume he asked a question, then we'll put him in the drawing. Let's see if am I missing any questions? You're getting a lot of compliments, Carolyn, for your voice, and you do have a great voice.
Thank you.
We have such a talented team. Every one of you guys is like, I don't know how you include me in your group because you're all so talented. Okay, here's a comment from James. I mess with the ones I make too. I've been cooking a lot. I use recipes and half read the spices. This relates to what Mark said, right? So let's see. Did we answer this about chimichurri sauce?
Yeah, the answer was it can be. I think, didn't Carolyn make one of ours?
I did. Mm-hmm. And I made it without oil too. It was on, what show was that? It was a couple months ago, I think.
Was it the green food?
I think it was our So Many Green Foods. That would have been March. So go back to the March show, and I made a very flavorful chimichurri sauce with no oil.
Bonnie, ICCM, I'm sorry I misspoke. It's ICNM, International Conference of Nutrition and Medicine. And I've been going for many years. I've been going for, Carolyn has as well. I've been going for, I guess, 10, 12 years. And I always organize these cool dinners. And I know DC quite well. One year we actually had it in Los Angeles. I didn't go to that one. It was before my time. But ICNM is an excellent conference. It usually sells out. It's like 1,000 people. And for the last 2 years, it's been virtual. And right now, I think they're trying to do it in person, and it's in DC. So ICNM, tell your healthcare providers to go. But I find as a non-doctor, I get a lot out of it as well. If I do go, I always tweet. So if you can't go, check out my Twitter feed. Most of my tweeting is about math because I teach math, but I tweet about vegan nutrition too. So if you're on Twitter, D Barman, Dilip Barman, D for David, Barman, B-A-R-M-A-N. So if I'm at the conference, you'll see a lot of summaries of the speakers. There's just so much excellent evidence-based information that the best thing for us is to be plant-based for so many reasons. To stay healthy, and if you end up with kidney disease or cancer or diabetes or any number of things, high blood pressure, that to help with that. So there's so many good reasons. It's one of those issues that there's no downside. There's no downside to being vegan, right? And so this conference helps solidify, yeah, thank heavens I'm plant-based. Look at all these new benefits. So even if you're not an MD, even if you're not as smart as Cody, who's a nurse, you can still get a lot out of it, right? Because the material often is accessible to non-medical people. Okay, I think there's a few more questions. Okay. James did ask a question. Yep, you asked if we're coming to Rochester. Okay. You can get hearts of palm pasta. I've never had that. I pride myself on knowing all sorts of ingredients, and I missed that one, right? Yeah, great for autoimmune, and of course, I didn't talk about it this time, but I made a film called Code Blue, codebluedoc.com. So there's a lot of evidence that going plant-based can help with multiple sclerosis. So plant-based diet is such a great way to go. So I think it's about time to do the drawing, and thank you, Infinite Love and Gratitude. We love your name. We hope that if you're new, we hope to see you again in our future shows. We'll talk in a minute about our upcoming shows, but let's go ahead and do the drawing. Last chance for any final questions, and while we're giving everybody another 15-20 seconds, let me just review what the prizes are. So we're giving away first, a 1-year subscription to Vegan Journal. I love it. Vegan Journal is a great magazine. It's a very, very good magazine. It's full of great factual information, new studies, new products, things like that. It used to be called Vegetarian Journal. And the second thing is Yellowbird, which is a series of hot sauces, and they're in these nice squeeze bottles. You put just a few drops. I love it. It's a great. I discovered it because I found it for free at when I go to DC. I stop in this wonderful restaurant in Richmond that has two entirely vegan salad bars, and they have help yourself hot sauce, and that's what got me into it. So anyhow, we'll be giving that away. Yeah, Krista, thanks for commenting with James. He asked about what mustard Karen had used. Yeah. Did we ever answer that, Karen? What mustard did you use in your sauce?
You can use any mustard. I have like a primal stone blend. I've used Dijon. You can use any kind of mustard you have. Like this, the thing about this sauce is you can everything except the tamarind, and you might even have that, but everything else is probably in the pantry.
And I wanted to mention, in terms of tamarind, some of these spices, sources like tamarind, or like I use kala namak, black salt. If you have an Indian grocery store, and more than likely there's one not too far from you. My parents immigrated from India in like 1960. There was literally 1,000 people in this country from India, and they didn't have, in Philadelphia, where I was born, they didn't have any Indian grocery stores. So my mom had to get on a bus and go to New York City. They did have Indian grocery stores in New York City to get spices. But now today there's Indian grocery stores all over, right? Maybe, Cody, not in the middle of Nebraska, right? If you go to where your grandparents are, is there an Indian grocery store there?
Oh, yeah, probably not. Some of the bigger cities along the interstate, I think there is, but but not those smaller rural communities.
Right. It's hard to not find Indian grocery stores. So if you go to an Indian grocery store, you can get tamarind super cheap, package of tamarind. And caramel sauce, I've made, I think, a caramel sauce, and I can't remember how I did it, but who wants to talk about caramel sauce?
You can easily blend up dates in a plant milk, and just put a tiny little bit of salt, pinch of salt if you want.
Let's do the drawing. Did you add Linda's name to the drawing?
Yeah, she was already in there.
Okay. Can you slowly read off the names you have, and then we'll pause a second to see if somebody says, "Oops, you forgot me."
Yeah. Bonnie McFall, Sherry Sargent, Trista Campanaro, Millie Morales, Diane Garber, Linda Pittman, Eileen Granite, Ronnie Hudson, Chica Sridhar, James Campanaro, Lavonda Hawkins, Infinite Love and Gratitude, and Anne.
Okay. Is there anybody we missed? We have a good list. So go ahead and, I assume you numbered them 1 through N. How many do you have there?
13.
13. Okay, so I'm going to generate a random number from 1 through 13. And just for practice, the first one won't count. So whoever wins this doesn't really win, just to see how it works. So I'm going to draw a random number from 1 through 13. And the pseudo winner turns out to be 13. So if this were really the drawing, who would have been the winner? Who's the 13th person?
Oh, Anne.
So Anne would have been the winner, but that didn't count. So now I'm going to draw again. It'll give me a random number from 1 through 13. Let's assume that we get 13 again. Then Anne will win the first prize, which is the journal subscription. And then we'll draw again. If we draw 13 again, you don't get to get 2 prizes. So once you win, you won 1 thing. Okay. So the first winner from that list, I'm going to draw a number, is going to be the 1-year subscription to Vegetarian Journal. And whoever wins, please, in the next few minutes, send a note to Karen. Her email is karen@somanycooks.com. Okay? Oh, okay, Krista, I see. Great. So I'm glad you're watching together. What a lovely way to spend some time. So the subscription to Vegan Journal, the number is from 1 through 13. The winner is 2. Who is number 2, Karen?
Sherry Sargent.
Jerry, congratulations. Can you acknowledge that you got that and that you're going to send Karen a note? Jerry Sargent? Sherry Sargent. Can you drop a note and we'll know that you heard that you're the winner? So Sherry, hopefully we'll hear from Sherry. Sherry, you won the magazine subscription. Okay, yep. There we go. Yay, wonderful. And Sherry, this is your first show with us, I believe, right? So congratulations. All right, so the second prize is that 5-pack of hot sauce. So Sherry, please send a note to Karen@somanycooks.com. Okay, and if you can do it now, that'd be good. So Karen can say, I got it. Okay. And what she's going to need to know is she's going to need your address and your email address so she can have that mailed to you. That's what she's going to need. And we don't share this with anybody, obviously. Don't post it here, but do send it to Karen. Okay. Oh, this is your first time, Karen. Sherry. Wonderful. Okay. Yay. Getting lots of congratulations. All right. So the prize for the hot sauce is, I'm going to draw again. And Sherry doesn't get to win again. Let's see. The winner is 9. Who's number 9?
Geeta.
Geeta, yay, Geeta, because I know you've been watching for a while, so I'm glad that you won. So Geeta, can you acknowledge that you got that? Geeta wins the hot sauce. And it's really nice that you got it, Geeta, because I know you were asking about adding heat, and we never answered that question. Yes, you can add heat to maybe or maybe not to the dessert hot sauce, to Angelita's, but to all the other ones, certainly to mine. Any tomato-based sauce goes really well with some heat, so if you like heat. And I'm guessing that I think you're of Indian background, and a lot of Indian recipes do have heat. So Geeta, yay! Geeta's acknowledging she knows she won. So Geeta, could you please drop Karen a note and let her know, Karen@somanycooks.com, and she will get you. She's going to need your name, full name, and mailing address, and she will get you the hot sauces. So Karen will acknowledge that she got the emails. You're checking your email, I assume. But let's start to wrap up, and starting to wrap up, let's talk about our upcoming shows. I'm going to ask Carolyn to talk about our June show, and then Cody to talk about what our kids show is and what the next 2 kids shows are. And then I'll talk a little bit about what we're thinking for the July show.
All right. So June 4th, we will be talking about so many tomatoes, which is good timing because, you know, the best tomatoes happen in the summertime. You don't want to buy tomatoes in January. They taste like cardboard. So summertime is the best time to buy tomatoes. So great timing, June 4th, so many tomatoes.
I'm thinking of making a green tomato recipe because a lot of people say, what do you do with green tomatoes? And I live in North Carolina in the South. It's called fried green tomatoes. Mm-hmm. And I have made that in my air fryer. And it's pretty good. But I'm thinking of doing a pressure cooked recipe because pressure cooked green tomatoes are so good. They add the subtle flavor without the overwhelming tomato flavor. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Anybody else? Do you guys know what you're doing for so many tomatoes?
Panzanella.
That's right.
Yeah, I just got back from Italy, so I'm feeling very Italian right now. So I'm making a panzanella.
You beat me to it because I make a wonderful panzanella. I used to teach. I do occasionally teach this ethnic vegetarian cooking class, and that's one of my students' favorites. I make a great panzanella, but I'll let you do the panzanella, Carolyn, because it's a great dish. Panzanella is you use some bread that's been hardened, some couple-day-old bread, and you coat it with some herbs like some fennel seeds. You bake it, and then you mix it in with some tomatoes, some cucumber, a little bit of vinegar. It's awesome. It's so good. I need to make it the next few days. And then, Cody, can you tell us what is? I have to say, Carolyn just had a great time. Every day she was sending me pictures and updates. My wife and I went to Italy, and we had the best food. We stayed at a vegetarian. It was called Agricultural Turismo, and it was like. Breakfast was like a 5-course breakfast, and dinner was like an 8-course dinner or something, and you had a choice of vegan or vegetarian. So, Cody, we need to get you invited to give a talk in Italy and to stay at such a place. It was great. The food was amazing in Italy. So, Cody, can you tell us more about So Many Kids in the Kitchen and what our next 2 shows are?
Yeah, okay, so our next one is June 11th, and that one's going to be So Many Picnic Foods. And then we have another one in August. I believe that's the 27th, and that's going to be school lunches is our theme. So I got 3 little girls. You know, Ava's 13, Ella's 10, and Nora's 5. And you have Anu, who is 13 as well. And then we have Ella's kids, Mia and Max, in Rhode Island, and they're going to join us for these shows. So we're excited.
And that'll be fun. My daughter is homeschooled. She's been homeschooled starting in 1st grade, but she does do activities where she has to prepare food. So we'll kind of morph it a bit. There's one of the sweet kiddos. Hi, sweet kiddo. That's Nora. I miss cooking with you, my friend. Let me turn the names off so we can see Nora a little bit. Oh, she's gone. Okay. So, and then in terms of our July show, so we're still trying to figure out our July show. I have proposed So Many Onions because onions are so flexible. I had an office mate when I was at IBM, and we asked each other. Thanks, Geeta. Good. I can't remember who the other winner was, but please, Sherry, please make sure you have sent your address to Karen. But my office mate would say that onion is his favorite vegetable because it's so versatile. So that's kind of the top of the idea. Nobody's gotten a better idea. So at the moment, it's so many onions, but we haven't decided. We've done like oh, here's a question. It's hard to find good onions. I love sweet onions. There's Nora. Hello, Nora. So if you guys have any suggestions, you can post it on our Facebook or YouTube spaces, and we'd love to hear your input. But we'll try to decide in the next few weeks so that you'll know what our next topic is. We can generate the artwork and all that kind of stuff. And then we haven't figured out. I think we have a date for August. We haven't figured out the schedule. Yeah. So somebody's saying if you do an onion show, maybe do a garlic show. Maybe it'll be a combined onion and garlic show, something like that. So both onions and garlic are in the same family, and they're so good for you. So we'll see what people think, and maybe it'll be onions and garlic. Did you know you can make garlic ice cream? There's a place in Seattle called the Gravity Bar, and they're a juice place, and they make garlic juice. And then in Gilroy, California, in the Bay Area, they have a garlic festival, and they make garlic ice cream. So you can do all sorts of cool things.
We're going to have to make sure we talk about what to do with gas as a result of the garlic and onion show. You know?
Do they generate gas? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean garlic especially.
Really? Huh. Okay, and Sherry she sent her email. Yay, Bonnie likes the idea of a garlic and onion show. So, we have so many ideas. One of these days we'll do a pressure cooking show, maybe even an air frying show. We did our appliances show, and we can repeat some of these topics for sure because there's so much to talk about. It's so easy to be plant-based. There's so many topics we have, but we always welcome. The appliance show came from a recommendation from our audience, so any ideas you have would be great. Would anybody like to say any parting comments on Halita or Carolyn, Karen, Mark, or Cody? Anything you want to share?
So one of the things I've said to my fellow Food for Life instructors, and I continue to live by, if you will, and that is, one of the reasons I get involved in so many cooks in the kitchen is obviously to share my knowledge, but I learn so much from my fellow cooks all the time. So that's the thing about being whole food plant based is there's an endless amount of information out there, and finding groups like So Many Cooks in the Kitchen, PCRM, for example, that really helps with your whole food plant-based journey. So, you all help me as much as we help you. So thank you.
And Chris is commenting about air fryer. Air fryers are great. I have a toaster oven style air fryer, and this is my second one. The first one wasn't as good quality and didn't last as long. I have a Breville, and I love it. I would never want to do without it. I do all my toasting, bagels, all my baking, cooking pizza. It's just so wonderful. It has 2 or 3 levels. It's great. I think a couple of you guys have that as well. So yeah, and it's nice. You don't need oil, which is wonderful. It does make it being oil-free much easier. Quick thing about oil, this has come up a bunch, is you don't need oil. It's not a healthy food, and it's just pure fat. So if you like olives, eat olives. When you have olive oil, you squish the olives. It's pure fat. You throw the fiber away. So enjoy the olives, but not the oil. I do buy oil, and I use it for a few very specific purposes. On cast iron, every 4 or 5 times after cooking, I put like a drop of oil, turn the heat on, and I gently rub it, and that helps season the pan. So I do use it for that purpose. But I don't cook with oil. I'd rather allocate my fat calories to other foods that I much prefer. Geeta's asking, Karen, did you get her address?
I did. I got both of them. Thanks.
Excellent. Both addresses are there. And Eileen congratulates folks. So with that, unless there's any final questions from any of the cooks in the kitchen, does anybody else want to say anything further? And Geeta, you said you haven't heard our song. I'm about to play the song for you. So I can find it. Let's see, where is it? There it is. Another comment coming in. Good, yeah. So wonderful, because you guys are wonderful. Thank you for the audience for watching us. We always look forward to our shows. We look forward to working with you. Keep your comments coming. Let your friends know who didn't see it. They can watch it after the fact on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, as well as thanks to Mark on our webpage, somanycooks.com/shows. And see you guys in just a few weeks. Take care.
Bye.
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 So kitchen. So many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen with ideas we're happy to share.